Diesel is up by 25 shillings to retail at 165 shillings per litre, while kerosene is up by 20 shillings to retail at 147 shillings and 94 cents per litre. The prices will be in force from September 15th to October 14th this year. During his inauguration, President William Ruto hinted that he would do away with subsidies on fuel and food, arguing that they are a huge burden to the exchequer and often lead to product shortages. Baringo Deputy Governor Charles Kipok has died. His death was confirmed by the county's Governor Benjamin Cheboy. Kipok died yesterday at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as he prepared to board a KQ flight to Mombasa. Speaking to the media from Lee Funeral Home, Cheboy acknowledged that Acting Director General for Health Patrick Amoth, who was also a passenger in the flight, was among doctors who tried to resuscitate Kipok to no avail. Now, First Lady Rachel Ruto spent her first day at State House meeting delegations of evangelists, gospel entertainers and preachers. Tanzanian music group Zabron Singers were the first to meet the First Lady. In her second meeting, Rachel met Prophet Victor Kusi Boateng from the Power Chapel Worldwide Ghana before hosting preacher couple Dr. Ian and Angel Ndlovu. A Limuru family is seeking justice after their two sons were brutally murdered in Nairobi's Kamulu neighborhood last week. Johnson Karuga, 26, and his brother Kelvin Kimani, 24, were last seen alive on the night of September 4th at a club in the Kamulu area, according to reports. According to their father, Joseph Kimani, the family launched a search for them after they failed to return home on the second day and their phones went unanswered. The bodies of the two men were discovered near a bridge in the Joska area a week later and taken to City Mortuary.
Naomba serikali na haswa DCI tafadhali waingilie hii maneno diposa tujue kiini ya hizi maneno juu watoto wetu hata kama kuna kitu yeyote walikuwa wamefanya tujue haswa ni wao walikuwa na makosa ama wenye waliwapiga ndio wenye walikuwa na makosa haswa sisi tunataka kujua.
Speaking to family members at Tigoni Hospital Mortuary, where the bodies were transferred from City Mortuary, Haki Africa Executive Director Hussein Khalid said that the bodies had injuries consistent with a blunt object attack. He urged the DCI to expedite investigations into the murders and apprehend as yet unidentified perpetrators.
According to the postmortem reports, we are told that they suffered multiple organ failure due to blunt injuries. And this is no way for any young man to lose his life. So our concern is that the killers are still walking scot-free in our communities. No person has been arrested over a week later over this incident. So we are asking the DCI to do their work and make sure the killers are brought to book so that the victims can get justice, so that the family can get justice.
American musician R. Kelly, who is serving 30 years in jail for sexual offenses, has been found guilty of child pornography and enticing minors to engage in sexual activity in a separate case and will be sentenced later. 55-year-old Kelly faced multiple child pornography, sex abuse and obstruction charges involving an earlier investigation that ended with his acquittal in 2008 state child pornography trial in his hometown of Chicago. A jury in the same city found Kelly guilty on 3 accounts of child pornography and 3 counts of enticing a minor. He was acquitted of a conspiracy to obstruct justice charge accusing him of fixing the 2008 trial. Kelly now faces 10 to 90 years in prison. 2 further trials are pending for Kelly, one in Minnesota and another in state court in Chicago. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
The following takes place between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for you retire.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are
a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, say, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning this Thursday, and what do the streets look like today? It looks like it's already started a little bit here and there on Mombasa Road. Jogger Road, as usual, we will see traffic and a build-up of that around this time, then getting towards the roundabouts and out into the city. Let's take a look at the Thika Superhighway in terms of movement and activity. Not just yet, a little bit here and there. We're going to see that build-up for sure, as we will see on Kiambu Road. Coming out of the Thika Superhighway, or rather, coming out of the western part of the city, we'll also see some movement here as well. How about we talk about it and see where you are in about half hour. SpiceFM, KE on Twitter. Let's keep things moving this Thursday.
Spice FM, Malindi. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is
At
the
8 minutes after
Situation Room,
6 o'clock,
the
it
only
is
way
the
to
14th
start
of
your day.
September, and many things have already happened even before you've had your morning coffee. Good morning. How are you doing? Hope all is well in your neck of the woods. Karibuni sana, and thank you for joining us this morning. So many things have happened, from governments to fuel, to no maize, to more fuel, to this, that, and the other thing. And we're here to talk about that all with you this morning. How are you doing? Hope everything is all right with you. I'm all right, and I'm not alone, which is a good thing. I'm not alone. I am not alone. I am here with me.
What are you doing by yourself?
Imagine, you left me.
Huh?
You had left me.
Surely. Are you well?
I'm well. Good morning, Eric. How are you?
I'm fine. Yes.
When I left you yesterday...
When you left me yesterday.
I'm just, giving context.
Uh-huh.
You said you were going to have a good day. You said, see you tomorrow.
I was praying for a good day.
Oh, gosh. Did you have one?
I did have a good day.
Okay.
Yeah, under the circumstances.
Under prevailing circumstances,
Yeah.
you had a good day. One is happy to hear this.
Yeah?
One is happy to hear this.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
You saw they started the laying of state of Queen Elizabeth.
Yes.
At Westminster Hall. And long queues of people watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see her family, falling in line, really, and to see how things have changed over the last, few years with, the Duke of Sussex and now the Prince of Wales. Interesting to see how they all kind of fell in line and were taking on the mourning for their, and now of course the King of England, and then taking in the mourning for their mother and grandmother. It was interesting to see. But yeah, she'll be buried on the 17th.
This Sussex chap,
Is he still part of the royal hierarchy?
He is still part of the
What did
royal
he do?
hierarchy. However, what he has
did?
done is that he has stepped away as a senior member, meaning that there's certain roles that he will not fulfill.
Like-
he will not wear the regalia, for example. He doesn't
That's why
wear
he was
his.
wearing a suit.
That's why he was wearing the suit
tuxedo.
only with the medals.
Right.
So he will not be called upon, for example, to represent, family in certain roles anymore.
But he was opening the thingy. He's in Victor's games. Some of those are his.
Those are his projects. He also continues.
But he was doing them as Duke of Sussex.
He still has a title. He's still titled, but he's just saying he's stepping away from some roles. I don't know that means that he's not no longer part of the royal family. He is, But I don't know. I think I'd like to go through that and see again. So what exactly does that mean that he doesn't?
What is he and what isn't he?
He's still the Duke. His wife is still the Duchess. He was fifth. It's interesting because he was fifth in line to the crown, right? He still is fifth in line to the crown. But if he has now stepped away from royal duties, does that mean that he has also removed his place?
He has no line.
He's still fifth in line. But now, does that mean that he will not, if in the event that his elder brother does not, and that his niece, his nephews
George.
and niece also then do not, then it is him.
You're in a long shot.
It's a long shot, isn't it?
Yeah. You're in a long shot, Sana. You're in a long. Good morning, everybody. It's the 15th, the day after the 14th, and yes, we know what April has done. They waited until 11 p.m. and then snuck it in. They said,
you people were saying, kuna, there's nothing. There's no need to buy fuel. Hey, shock on you.
It happened, didn't it?
What? Didn't it just?
Yes. It's Thursday as well, so it's hashtag Justice Thursday. We're going to have a conversation about the Children's Act 2022 and the opportunities for the Kenyan child, especially from the justice angle. The Honorable Justice Dr. Emmanuel Ibuta, who is the judge of the Court of Appeal, will be here with us today to talk about that at 7 a.m. At 8 o'clock, Africa Uncensored of John Allan Namu has unleashed something, and they're calling it Whizzy Leaks. John Allan Assange. Profiling corruption scandals from Moi's regime through to the Uhuru regime. And they have unleashed it. It's online. We'll be talking to him about it. He'll tell us, so what exactly are they saying? They've profiled what? Have they gone to top secret government information and that they are leaking? Or is it just sitting down and listening to people saying, umesikia corruption wapi? Umesikia corruption wapi? Umesikia Aror? They write Aror. Na gani ingine? Kimorer? They write Kimorer. Na gani ingine?
Prisons waliba pesa ya
Prisons.
Maze.
Yes. So he'll come. John Allan Namu will be with us at 8 o'clock to have the conversation. He'll be joined by Wanjiru Gikonyo, who's coming in at 8 as well for that conversation. And Wanjiru stays on up to 9 o'clock because Wanjiru, as you know, has been part of, the Institute for Social Accountability, has been a part of the Okoa Kenya, Okoa Uchumi.
You want to say Okoa Jahaz, don't you?
It's been Okoa Uchumi. Yeah, it's Okoa.
Yes.
Okoa Uchumi and the Okoa Mombasa campaigns. Okoa Mombasa was pushing for the return of port operations at the port of Mombasa. And she'll be here. She'll be joined by the new MP for Nyeri Masaba constituency, Dr. Daniel Manduku, who is a former managing director at the Kenya Ports Authority. The implications of reverting port operations to Mombasa. That's what we will discuss with them at 9 a.m. Keep it here for that. Now, we are going to look at COVID.
Yes, we are. As of the 13th of September, in the last 24 hours, 21,407,858 had received their vaccines. In terms of numbers of those who are being infected by the coronavirus, we're still looking at low numbers. Yesterday was 4 new cases. Kenya's positivity rate is still considerably low. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. We're also looking at global numbers now of 615 million. All of this is happening when the World Health Organization is saying it could be that the end of the COVID pandemic is in sight. Okay, the World Health Organization urges countries to keep up their efforts to fight the disease with the lowest level of recorded cases since March 2020. The number of newly reported cases of COVID-19 has dropped dramatically. The head of the World Health Organization has said, urging nations to keep up their efforts against the disease that has killed more than 6 million people. We have never been in a better position to end the pandemic, according to WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. He told reporters in a virtual news conference yesterday. We are not yet there, but the end is in sight, he said. Newly reported cases of the disease, which has killed millions and infected 615 million, last week fell to the lowest level, he said. If we don't take this opportunity now, we can run the risk of more variants, more deaths, more disruption, and more uncertainty. And so the question is, so then how do we end it now? He says, do what you need to do to rein in the virus. Their policy briefs, there's an urgent call for governments to take a hard look at their policies, strengthen them for COVID-19 and future pathogens. So you can do what you can do now. Get your vaccination operations in place. Have your health screening and prevention measures up to scratch and keep it tight. Vaccinate 100% of high-risk groups and keep testing for the virus. So you can do these things regularly. Make sure that if it pops up, you snuff it out, is what he's saying. And that's the how. There's certain things you can do now to make sure that it doesn't creep up on you again in the future. And if we do that, we can actually say, on the globe, we can end COVID.
Okay. 17 after 6, we are live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook. Good morning. Let us know where you're tuned in from. Shortly after we take a look at the weather forecast, we will be reading your messages on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter. Good morning.
I know the sun is out in Nairobi at least. As you tembea, be careful. Manchester United are trying to sign anyone. Watch out where your children are. Please hide yourselves.
Sugar and spice.
I reached a point where suicide things were just going south completely. Something stopped me.
14, highs of 21 today, and we'll see highs of 24 in Nakuru, where it's currently clear at 13. It's raining in Nyeri at 14, highs of 19, and we'll see clear conditions for now in Eldoret at 13 with highs of 23. 22 and raining in Mombasa, highs of 28 and lows of 22. And we'll see light rain at 24 in Malindi, highs of 28 and lows of 24. It's mostly cloudy at 18 in Kisumu, highs of 28 and 27 will be the high in Kakamega, where it's mostly cloudy for now at 16. All right, looking into Kampala, it's 19 and mostly clear, highs of 25 and lows of 17, and 21 and cloudy, highs of 30 and lows of 21. 10 degrees and mostly cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 24, and we'll see highs of 29 in mostly cloudy Lagos at 25. It's 23 and raining in Kinshasa, highs of 30 and lows of 23. Looking out into Beijing, Thursday afternoon, it's sunny at 28, highs of 30 and lows of 17. Cloudy at 17 in Paris with highs of 22 and lows of 13. 14 and mostly cloudy in Paris, highs of 19 today, and we'll see highs of 27 coming into Thursday. It's still Sunday night in New York. It's mostly clear at 23.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Let me tell you, my friend.
Mornings.
10 minutes after 6.
Silly.
Who's online?
Everybody. Peter Njoroge says, good morning, gang. Good to be back from hectic duties. Anyways, thank you for making the show a success with intelligent talk. Asante sana. Good morning to you, Peter Njoroge.
Peter, what are the hectic duties?
Hey, where were you?
I was in charge of the inauguration.
What doing?
Assumption of office committee
Right.
member Peter Njoroge. Thank you.
Yegon Hussein is in Gashie.
Aye, you're good.
He's in Gashie, and he says today the discussion will be lit. Join the show. Thank you very much. Good morning, Eric and Ndu. Elikana says, did City go to attend the Queen's, I think what you meant was memorial service? Yes, well, you know, these people called Charles.
He had to be there
Yeah.
for his namesake.
For his namesake. Yes, he did. Good morning, you two. Eldoret is listening. Asante Sana, Karibu Sana. Andrew Franklin, good morning. Morning from a drizzly Bernard estate. Yes. We see you there. Okay, everybody's online this morning. Jane Dutta tuning from Mombasa. Kolwen Nyakach sub-county is where Cleophas Anam is. Robert is tuned in. Already on site is Collins. And Yule Devi says he's in from Mombasa. Linda Choge says, good morning, people. Tuning from Kimilili, Kibenge Ward. That's where Amos Freeman is. Martin Wandei, interestingly enough, is tuned in from 179 Fuel Pump FM. Okay, Peter Ndalo says, good morning, tuning from Roraka. And at the Nyeri Fuel Pump is where Gatuiko is. Olum Victor says, Mutaesabu Sana, Sisi ndio tuko. Okay. Good morning, people tuning from Kisumu City. That's where Arnold Ondigo is. Malaba Awar is tuned in. Quite a number of people tuned in this morning. Newton, we see you. Ashley is there as well. Jeffrey, Makori, Asante Sana, everybody, and Karibu, good morning.
Everybody, welcome. Oh my word, proverb is me.
It is you.
Yeah, let me look for it.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
Yesterday, we went to the country of Egypt, where we will be today and tomorrow. Right. Proverb from Egypt. The worst things, to be in bed and sleep not, to want for one who comes not, to try to please and please not.
The what?
The worst things, to be in bed and sleep not, to want for one who comes not, to try to please and please not.
Those are the worst things. It's true.
Those three.
It's true. Is there anything worse
than wanting someone who doesn't come, wanting to please and you can't please,
you can't. Wanting to sleep and you can't.
To sleep and you can't sleep. Shida tupu. Buy a copy of The Standard today for only 60 shillings across the country. Or if you go to Tanzania, it's 1,700 shillings in Tanzania. Or 2,700 shillings in Uganda. Of course, each of those currencies corresponding to the country. And then look for the page that has the QR code. Once you find the QR code, scan it. And you stand a chance of winning some good goodies from the Good Standard, including branded merchandise, including shopping vouchers or cash vouchers. What's on the front pages?
Okay, front page of The Standard this morning. Fuel hits record high, of course. Citizens will have to dig deeper in their pockets for the next month after the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority increased the price of petroleum products. Of course, we cannot but add. A day after President William Ruto said the fuel subsidy Kenyans had been enjoying was not sustainable. So, boom, bang, shebang. Baptism by fire as Ruto faces fuel crisis. The president had a busy day in State House, holding meetings with foreign guests who attended his inauguration and witnessing the swearing in of 6 judges his predecessor refused to appoint. He concluded with crucial talks to confront the immediate dilemma yet. How to check runaway fuel prices without a costly subsidy. Is it possible to do? That's the question.
Okay, so let's just hit it straight up. Mafuta mapanda.
179 Kenya shilling.
In Nairobi.
Right.
And diesel goes up by 20 shilling. Okay, so where is that statement by April? You have this. They've taken out a full page on the papers. They say, here's what they say. That fuel in Nairobi now, Super Petrol 179.30, diesel 165, kerosene 147. It goes up. And it's going up by a number of shillings. I want to look for the statement itself so we can read the statement itself. What the Director General of EPRA said. The Director General of EPRA, his name is, he has a name, we know it. He says, Daniel Kipto, he says, the average landed cost of super petrol dropped by 24% in the last month. That for diesel dropped by 13% in the last month. That for kerosene dropped by 19% in the last month. Okay? But remember, in last month, there was a full utilization of a subsidy. They're saying, taking into account the fact that the government has a new policy to progressively remove subsidy on petroleum fuels, the changes in the maximum allowed petroleum pump prices in Nairobi are as follows. Super petrol, diesel and kerosene increased by 20 bob, 25 bob and 20 shillings respectively. Petrol, 20. Diesel goes up by 25 and kerosene goes up by 20 bob. However, this is what happens. What happens is that there is although the subsidy for super petrol has been removed, a subsidy of 20 shillings and 82 cents per litre has been retained for diesel, and 26 shillings and 25 cents per litre has been retained for kerosene in order to cushion consumers from the otherwise high prices. The marketing companies will now get the difference. So, difference to be compensated out of petroleum development levy for super petrol, 0. Subsidy retained on diesel and kerosene at 20 bob and 26 bob. Yet the price of these two products has actually gone up by 25 bob and 20 bob. So if we didn't have this 20 bob subsidy on diesel, diesel would have gone up by 45 shillings.
One shot.
Like that. Whoop, from 165.
You'd have been paying 200 plus shillings for a litre of diesel without the subsidy.
Without the subsidy.
Oh, good Lord. The thing is, the question that is being asked here is that how do you check runaway fuel prices without a costly subsidy? Is it possible to actually have it done? So remove the subsidy, and this is what we are saying, that you will be buying fuel or you'll be buying diesel at 203, 204 odd shillings per litre.
Yeah.
Right now, looking at the way things
gone up
are,
by 205,
206
It would have
shillings.
been 206 bob.
And that is with the subsidy.
Without.
Yeah. So
with zero subsidy.
Zero subsidy, 206 shillings.
Yes.
So now the question is it possible to have fuel being bought at an affordable price with all the factors constant as they are today without a subsidy? Is it possible?
Oh, no. Sorry. Point of correction, Mr. Speaker. Without a subsidy, diesel will be 185. Now with a subsidy, it's 165.
Okay, all right.
Without a subsidy, kerosene would have been 174. With subsidy, it's 147.
Okay. Still, the question is,
if they remove this subsidy next month,
yes, it would go even higher
go
with the trajectory that we see,
Yep.
the way things are going currently. And that is the question today. That some of these forces, unfortunately, you cannot control, all right? But there are some which you can. And I think that is the question that is going to be asked. The tax is a big issue. It always has been. Is it possible to effectively reduce the amount of tax that is being charged on the landed cost of fuel? Is it possible to do that? Can you
during
tinker
the
with
presidential
those numbers?
debate, when we asked the now president that question, he said, you know what, come on, we can actually manage the cost of fuel. It is a huge chunk of the cost of fuel at the pump is taxes. We can look at some of those levies and see which ones to remove. We asked them which one. He said, there are many.
Which one?
So now we'll see.
We'll see which one.
Yeah.
Because it's that.
Because if you remove that, how do you fight? This is one very good pot where the government is able to make money upfront.
And if you take that away, then essentially what you're doing is you're removing a sizable chunk of government income.
Revenues.
Revenues. That's what you're doing. So which one do you do? Do you have the subsidy there? Or do you say remove the subsidy? It's too expensive. We're spending all this money and we're not even seeing it flowing. And that's the thing, that all this money that is being used on the subsidy, you're not even seeing the return of it flowing back into the economy. All right? So do you remove it and let people now balance things out in the market?
Yeah.
Or do you say, you know what, let's look at all these levies and taxes and knock off a few shillings here and there, and let's see, without a subsidy, how much we can actually have fuel costing, and then deal with the rest?
The thing is, if they remove the subsidy, then they've got to remove the Petroleum Development Levy.
Absolutely.
All right? Because that's where we are contributing this money for subsidy. So then we are saying that 5 shillings and 40 cents would go immediately from at the pump. So, okay, that would then make sense and say, all right, so it's gone up, but we've removed this. We are not contributing, so it's all market forces. But it's only 5 shillings and 40 cents that is contributing to something. If you look at how much in total we pay at the pump, that is taxes and levies. Taxes and levies. Mafuta lands in Mombasa, super petrol, it's 99 bob when it lands in Mombasa. 99 shillings. How much are you buying it at the pump in Nairobi? 179 shillings. 60 bob going somewhere. Let me tell you where. We have this, product costs of 3 shillings and 44 cents. Distribution and storage costs. These are the monies that are going to Kenya Pipeline and all, and Kenya Port. 12 shillings and 39 cents. Margins for petroleum dealers in Super Petrol now has been removed. I mean, it's set at 12 shillings and 39 cents. Taxes and levies, it is 64 shillings and 14 cents on taxes and levies alone. The taxes and levies are excise duty 21 bob and 95 cents. Road maintenance levy at 18 bob. Petroleum development levy 5 shillings and 40 cents. Petroleum regulatory levy 0 shillings and 25 cents. A railway development levy, 1 shilling and 90 cents. Anti-adulteration levy is not levied on petroleum. Merchant shipping levy, 0.03 shillings. Import declaration fee, 3 shillings and 33 cents. VAT, 13 shillings and 28 cents. Total, 64 shillings and 14 cents. Add that to Mafuta itself, without anything. If you just go and wait at the ship in Mombasa and fuel your car, 99.
You spend 99 shillings.
Yes.
Yeah. All the rest actually is in taxes.
Yes.
All the rest is in taxes. So, and I think that is the question, because right now you do not have another option. It is if you want to remove the subsidy, because we have said it's expensive, and I think that many across would agree indeed that to subsidize the cost of fuel is an expensive venture. Okay? If you are going to remove it, are you ready then to deal with this 80 odd shillings that is coming in form of tax? Can you knock it off some? If you can't, then my friend, you're in a difficult position. What are you going to do?
It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. So the president said some bold decisions have got to be taken. He justifies this by saying, you know what, the taxpayers are coughing out a lot of money in this subsidy program. We can't afford it. Okay. Mr. President, if you do not spend 60 billion shillings on a fuel subsidy, you're not going to collect 60 billion shillings from us, because it's money that's coming from us anyway. Anyway, it's 25 minutes to 7. Let's take a quick break. Take a look at the traffic. Now that people are walking. Chris says, you know what, guys? I'm walking to the station today, so I'm going to be a little bit late. Hii fuel, nimenunua maji ya kunywa.
I'm old school.
Instead of kununua mafuta, nunua maji ya kunywa, tembea.
Yep.
Are you ready, Nairobi?
Big up Standard Group Radio Maisha.
There's something cooking.
Ladies and gentlemen, and we're about to serve you with a lot of greatness. Please welcome. If you've got great taste in music, from superb Kenyan artists, an amazing palate, and into gaming, keep a lookout for an experience to remember from Radio Maisha. If last time was anything to go by,
it's Crispy the drama boy.
I'm so excited, it's already weekend. We're just warming up. We just getting started. This time, it's hotter, bigger, better, and it's going to be banging. Kaini Rada.
All right, are there vehicles on the roads this morning, even with the high cost of fuel? Yes, there are. And we're seeing that traffic has started to build up here and there on the Thika Superhighway, just past the Pangani underpass. But beyond that, really nothing. Maybe we'll see some movement after 7. But for now, it looks like you can get in and out to the city without too much of an issue. We're looking at a little bit here and there, having started on Gong Road and then going out towards that whole Lavington area is not too bad right now. James Gishuru for now still looks pretty good, as it does on Ring Road Westlands. Everywhere else looks all right. We're going to keep an eye on things and see. This is the time to get out if that's your plan. You won't get stuck where you're going, at least not for now, in whatever direction you are coming in from. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there and let's keep things moving this morning.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right. We'll get used to it.
Mornings done right.
Yeah.
90.
Turn up. Get used to it. It's the only thing you can do. There's a story on page 3 of the Standard today, which is a very good conversation, actually, that is being started. There's a man who's gone to court and he's challenging a piece of legislation. The Employment and Labor Relations Court has refused to dismiss a case in which men are seeking equal paternity leave days as women. Justice Stella Ruto dismissed objections filed by the Ministry of Labour and the Attorney General, who are arguing that the Labour Court lacks jurisdiction over Dr. Magare Gekenyi's case because he's neither an employee nor a union official. According to the Ministry and the AG, the High Court and not the Labour Court is the one that should be handling such a matter. But the judge says the court holds the authority to determine whether Section 29 of the Employment Act discriminates against men by providing women with 91 days of maternity leave and men only get 14 days. In the case, the surgeon is requesting that the court rule that the Section 29 of the Employment Act is discriminatory based on an employee's gender at work. Section 29 of the Act allows women to take up to 3 months maternity leave, which is fully paid by the employer. A woman is only required to give a 7-day notice to enable the employer to make the necessary adjustments. On the other hand, men have 14 working days of paid paternity leave. Kenya wants the law to guarantee working men the same number of days for paternity leave as women get for maternity leave. He says there is outright discrimination in terms of the duration of leaves of mothers and fathers of the same child. The differentiation or discrimination of duration of maternal and paternal leave is not fair. The contested law gives mothers a 3-month maternity with full payment, but men only get 14 days. In the circumstances, this radical, irrational, and illegal discriminatory policy, which has been made by the respondents to defenseless Kenyans, ought to be declared illegal, null, and void, and be quashed.
Okay. So, I mean, essentially, this case is asking for more days for men for paternity leave.
It's basically saying, first of all, declare this discriminatory and therefore illegal. So then we force Parliament to go on and amend it and say parents will get 90 days leave, maternity and paternity.
I agree that men definitely need more days, especially when it comes to the inclusion in the development of a child's life. I agree 100%. I also then look at the reason why maternity leave was instituted in the first place, is that the assumption is that a woman's body has gone through quite a lot, and that young child then depends on her for nurturing physiologically depends on her for nurturing, especially if she's feeding that child and the child is getting all the sustenance from her. It takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on you. And then to be able to have bonding and such for the child. So, I mean, why that was instituted in the first place, I mean, clearly needs no further understanding. If it does, then there's a bit of a problem, right? At the same time, I think that the role of the father of this child has been greatly overlooked. If anything, beyond the physical contribution and anything, if anything, it will ground then the responsibility and the role that a father also does play in the life of this child.
The band is actually quoting scientific research
titled
Father Involvement and Cognitive Development in Early and Middle Childhood. He says men are bearing a significant role in the development of children soon after birth, and they should also be allowed enough time to participate in this early cycle of a child. The study shows clearly that a father has a role in the development of a child, and that the first few days after the child is born are important in its development. Both should be there, and those days are not 14.
No. And I think that there's also a renewed, I think there is a current now appreciation of this same thing. Because the truth is, Eric, before is that, okay, so this is the mother of my children, she's had the baby, you go. Right? You're done. You go back to your duties without realizing that the man also plays a critical role in this development that we're talking about at the very beginning. The problem is, though, that you'll find some people who, if this goes through and the time has been increased, unfortunately, you find some people who are still going to the woman will have the baby and they'll still take off. In terms of that development and sticking around to actually be part of that process, you'll find some people who will not.
Well, that can be argued, in terms the same way someone would say, there's some women, so she's given birth, there's a baby, there's a nanny, and by
she's gone.
first 1.5 months down the road, she's back up and out. Only comes to spend time with the baby. Those are arguments that can be had, but they should not take away from the fact that there are people who want to spend that time bonding with their children, and they like the time. During this time, remember all these issues of postpartum. Postpartum depression also affects both. And you want to have that moment of bonding as a couple with your child. So it's like assuming, men just don't have a feeling. Yeah, baby has been born. Yeah. This is no. Even men have a feeling. Okay, my baby. Oh my! You want to spend time bonding with this child. 90 days. In fact, let's make it 120.
Oh, voila!
In some countries like Finland,
it's 9 months.
You get an entire year.
Yeah.
To bond with your child, because Finland is trying to encourage you to actually get a baby.
Please have babies, because the population is dwindling.
Yes. You get a child, go to hospital, get a baby, free.
Come.
And then you're leaving hospital, you're given diapers, you're given...
What do you need?
Everything. What do you need? A baby cot, you're given a baby cot, you're given the beddings. And then you're told, stay. For 1 year, you just stay. Don't worry.
It'll be interesting to see what the courts will say about this. It's about time the conversation was had. I think we need to move on towards actually this total inclusion when it comes. If we remain in the courts and also about children, there's a story that has also come out in the Standard. And what's in a name is the question. A name is not enough basis for DNA, says court. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, William Shakespeare said in his line in Romeo and Juliet, to convey the message that what someone is called does not change who they are. That seems to be the logic used by a judge and applied when in a child upkeep case where he ruled that the court cannot presume that a child was born out of wedlock because of their name. Justice John Onyego argued that because the child bore a Luo name, yet the father was Kamba, was not enough reason to order a DNA test. Follow me so far?
Ati, child has a Luo name.
Yeah.
And the father is called Mutiso. Let's
Doesn't
do a
mean you
DNA.
now suddenly say that is not his child. Justice Onyego made the ruling in a child upkeep case in which a man codenamed DMK wanted a minor subjected to a DNA test on suspicion that the child was not his. Are you still following me?
No,
I
from that
read it
point on,
again.
let's start. Let's start now from that point.
Onyego made the ruling in a child upkeep case in which a man codenamed DMK wanted a minor subjected to a DNA test on suspicion that the child was not his. The child in question, the court heard, is named after his mother's brother.
Okay.
The child's
Child
child's
is
mother.
named after the mother's brother.
Yes.
Named after its uncle. All right.
All right. DMK argued that his wife had played games with him and got the firstborn out of wedlock, and it was possible she could have got the lastborn too out of wedlock. DMK argued that his wife, codenamed FJM, ought to have followed Kamba traditions when naming their lastborn. He asked the court to order a paternity test to settle the matter. In her reply, FJM told the court that she named the child after her brother and that her estranged husband knew about it. Justice Onyego argued with the magistrate's court that the child should be presumed DMK's as he was born during the marriage. I do agree with the magistrate that not giving the child a Kamba name, the appellant's tribe, is quite trivial in my opinion. It does not form a concrete basis for a DNA examination to be ordered. In that case, DMK argued that he separated from his wife in 2017 following irreconcilable differences. After the separation, FJM filed a child maintenance case for the 4 children. She asked the court to make DMK pay 38,833 shillings per month. She stated that he was a Shylock and a private process server. The judge heard that the man was paid 1.36 million shillings for the wrongful arrest and detention in 2017, but he only shared 97,000 with his wife and his family. In his reply, the man countered that he had paid debts worth 300,000, given the children and his former wife 247,000, and that the balance of 750,000 he had bought land and built a house. So surely. In a rejoinder, he told the court that he was not in a position to pay 8,000 as ordered by the magistrate's court. Instead, he offered to pay between 3,000 and 4,000 per month. DMK said he was a farmer and had no regular income. However, Justice said that parental responsibility was not only for those who are earning. The judge ordered he pay 8,000 as ordered by the lower court. So, first of all, you cannot say that because the child does not
They
bear...
have 4 children.
Yes, they have 4 children.
Together as a couple,
Yes.
or only one was born during their marriage.
All 4 children are theirs, which is why the court said all these 4 children are yours.
And it's the last born that is the point of contention here.
Yes.
So
This child was born at the time when you people were still married. So you cannot say the child is not yours. You're ordering for a DNA test. We are saying no. And you're saying that the reason why this child the reason why you're asking is because this child has a different name from yours and that the woman named him after you had already left.
how are the other 3 named?
They have. It doesn't tell us that information. The one in
well, the other
contention-
3 born during marriage.
Yes.
It says that.
It says that, yes. In fact, the court said. She told the court that she named the child after her brother and that her estranged husband knew about it. Onyego agreed with the magistrate's court that the child should be presumed DMK's as he was born during the marriage. It doesn't talk about the other children. I agree with the magistrate that not giving the child a Kamba name, the appellant's tribe, is quite trivial. In my opinion, it does not form a concrete basis for a DNA examination to be ordered. She filed a maintenance case for their 4 children and asked the court to order him to pay 38,000 shillings per month.
Okay. Because were they still together when the baby was born and the baby was being named? Was he aware that the baby is being named? I mean...
He accused her of having the first child out of wedlock.
First
child, but he was with her before they got married, you get? They had a child before they got married. He is now saying that also that first child might not even be his. You get?
So I get it. So the man is saying, okay, yeah, we were together, but it doesn't mean that
it's mine.
It was exclusive. It may not. This relationship may not have been exclusive. She may have been.
Yes. Dabbling.
Okay.
But you see now, the interesting thing here is that a name is not enough.
The argument here is that actually, see, she's even named her after the brother, so this can't be my child.
Judge
even her, she acknowledged that this is not your child. That's why I'm naming. I'm not even giving you the name.
But she says this guy knew that I was naming him after my brother. After all, he was misbehaving at the time. Name is not enough.
There's a
court
story
says.
they're not telling it. They're not telling us.
They're not telling
us the full story.
Neither are they telling
They must
the court
have had
the
a
full
conversation
story.
at that point. There is no way that it just happened without a conversation. They must have had a conversation. So what are we naming this baby? Or maybe I am naming the baby. Why? Because blah, 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 blah. They must have had a conversation. Let me take you to Parliament.
Okay.
Despite all the meetings in Karen, Azimio officially has a majority of members. The Azimio coalition. Officially. Okay? Because it has MPs who were elected under Jubilee and ODM and Wiper and
DPK, DAKP.
Those ones. And the Maendeleo Chap Chap and the others.
Maendeleo Chap Chap is still with them. They're one MP. It's still
Officially.
under Azimio. Okay, so.
Officially.
Sawa.
Maendeleo Chap Chap is still a member of the Azimio coalition. So when it comes to Parliament, the Azimio coalition is the majority. And it's going to produce the majority leader. Are we together so far?
We are together.
Now, the battle is for who becomes the leader of the majority. That's the third senior most position in Parliament, in the National Assembly, after the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. The people who are going for this seat, of course, are ODM members. Opiyo Wandayi, the Ugunja MP, former minority leader who's now nominated, John Badi, and Mr. Junaid Mohammed, who is the MP for Suna what?
Suna East.
East. So, the battle is among those people. The Standard has reliably learned that there is opposition to Junaid's candidacy for any parliamentary leadership position. Junaid has been under fire on social media that he was part of those who allegedly bungled Raila's campaigns, claims that Azimio has refuted through a statement earlier in the week. A source says the Suna East MP enjoys Raila's favor, but MPs are linking him to the Azimio leader's failed State House bid. Lawmakers have also disparaged Junaid on the party's social media platforms, forcing the Azimio leadership to intervene. Raila, who's expected back from a trip abroad, is said to have reached out to ODM officials in a bid to extinguish these flames engulfing the Suna East MP. Some of them have vowed to walk out if Junaid is handed any seat. We could not reach Junaid on phone to get his comment. Opiyo Wandayi, the MP for Ugunja, yesterday said he is in the race to be majority leader, a task he describes as humbling. I think I can serve my party, my coalition, and my country better if I get this chance, he said, arguing that Azimio is a majority coalition owing to the number of MPs it secured in the August 9th polls. Speaker, outgone Speaker Justin Muturi has said that, this is upon Speaker Moses Wetangula to rule on who's actually the majority in the House if there's any dispute. You see, the Speaker, Moses Wetangula, has got to look at
officially
what he gets from the Register of Political Parties.
That's what he
Register of Political Parties has the coalition agreements lodged with her.
She'll say it as it is.
She'll just say, this is the list I have. These are members of Azimio. These are members of Nini. And I registered a new post-election coalition. Remember the one that has George and Jonas, the late George and Jonas party. 3 parties have, those ones.
So, it's no speaking to me quietly. It's no buttering. It is what is on the paper that is what
it has to be what's on the paper.
It's what's on the paper.
Unless Speaker Moses Wetangula comes and says, I'm reading the mood of the House.
Yeah, and in my opinion.
And in my reading of the mood, the mood tells me
that
So, clearly the daggers are drawn. And it's an ODM affair.
Looks like it.
It's an ODM affair. So what happens to the other members of the coalition?
I wonder.
Other parties in
they
the
should not be
coalition.
recognized or even given a shot at.
Maybe they'll get,
the
you
leader
get
of the
chair.
majority.
Because if they are the majority, they chair all the other committees.
Of committees.
Yes.
Is theirs.
Apart from the oversight committees, parliamentary accounts and parliamentary public investments.
They'll just tell them, okay, so you come and do this one.
So you chair health, you Wiper chair health, Jubilee Sabina chair health, Wiper chair transport,
finance,
UWK chair budget, those kind of things.
It's probably what will happen. Let's see. I'll tell you a story.
Tell me.
I wish CT was here for this. But in his absence, we shall read it. It's coming out of the national pages in the Standard. Luo Land village whose residents are pure British.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? Yes. As the UK is mourning, the village is probably the most broken-hearted in Kenya. Stroll around Kongwen, your village in Karachuonyo, Homa Bay County, reveals a puzzling trend and a belief that has been passed for generations. Here, people refer to themselves. Sorry. Here, people refer to themselves as Joe British, meaning they are British or Britons. English is the residents' favorite language, and they have believed that they have closer ties and bonds with the British monarchy since the colonial days. And as the UK is in mourning because of Queen Elizabeth II's death, the village is probably the most broken-hearted in Kenya because of the belief that, courtesy of the late paramount chief Paul Mboya, memories of how the former chief brought them closer to the British monarchy are fresh, especially among the elderly. Mboya served between 1935 and 1946 and as a trusted ally of the British colonial government. He was one of the few people who interacted with Queen Elizabeth II when she was still a princess and when she was coronated. He was also one of the 7 Kenyans who attended the coronation of the Queen in 1953 and brought the British culture back to his village. He promoted the ideologies of the British even as people in other parts of the country were fighting for self-rule. Mboya tried to unite the Luo community while working closely with the British colonialists. He was only one of the few elders from the Luo land who would speak English fluently, and one of the few who interacted with Queen Elizabeth II. She awarded him the Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. The new generation knows little about those stories passed down about his heroism to promoting Christianity and African culture, but it is an honor that was bestowed upon him by the Queen that has stuck in the memories of many elderly people. Members of the Luo Council of Elders claim he was a charismatic leader, and that is why he was among the few Kenyans who were invited to the coronation in 1953.
Of Queen Elizabeth II.
Yes, please.
Okay.
And in this place in Karachuonyo, they're called what?
Joe British.
They only speak what? English. Hey, City, where are you when we need you, yeah?
Hey, Karachuonyo is in which county?
Homa Bay.
Homa Bay. Ah, nice.
I like it very much.
So they're really feeling it.
One Joseph Ongalo said, "We were saddened by the news. When the Queen visited Kenya, we were very young boys. It was Paul, whom she knew very well, and who was showing her around." She's our peeps.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you.
Poleni, take heart, the people of this village.
Yeah. Everything is going to be all right.
Long live the king.
Indeed.
Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. Justice Thursday's conversation. Let's talk about children, the Children's Act, and the rights of children from what? Conception.
Till 18.
Till 18. Rights of children. We'll have a judge in the studio with us, a judge of the Court of Appeal. Good morning. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is Newswire. I am Stephanie Wangari. Citizens will have to dig deep in their pockets for the next month after the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, increased the price of petroleum. In Nairobi, Super Petrol is up by 20 shillings and 18 cents and will now retail at 179 shillings and 30 cents per litre. Diesel is up by 25 shillings to retail at 165 shillings per litre, while kerosene is up by 20 shillings to retail at 147 shillings and 94 cents per litre. The prices will be in force from September 15th to October 14th. During his inauguration, President William Ruto hinted that he would do away with subsidies on fuel and food, arguing that they are a huge burden to the exchequer and often lead to product shortages. Siaya Governor James Orengo has labelled former President Uhuru Kenyatta's decision to overlook 6 judges for promotion to the Court of Appeal and Environment as unjustified. In a statement yesterday, Orengo opined that the judges exceeded all requirements needed to take up the new positions after being recommended for promotion by the Judicial Service Commission. Orengo said, and I quote, "There was no justification at all to frustrate the appointment of the judges of the Court of Appeal, some of the best judicial brains," end of quote. The 6, Agri Muchelule, Weldon Korir, Joel Ngugi, George Odunga and Judith Omange, were part of a cohort of 40 judicial officers who were eligible for promotion in June 2021 after being vetted by the Judicial Service Commission. However, President Kenyatta initially said that the 6 were underqualified for the roles before later stating that they had underlying integrity issues. Following the swearing in of judges yesterday, President William Ruto has vowed to lead from the front in upholding the rule of law.
I want to assure you that my administration will respect the independence of the judiciary, will respect the independence of all the other institutions in a manner that makes them efficient to deliver on their respective mandates. We will promote dialogue between institutions and positive engagement so that we can all focus on how to take Kenya to a higher level.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party will tomorrow meet in Machakos County to decide on candidates for its parliamentary leadership positions. Raila Odinga's Orange Democratic Movement ODM is set to produce National Assembly Majority Leader. Former Minority Leader John Mbadi, former Minority Whip Junet Mohammed and Ogunja lawmaker Opiyo Wandayi are considered frontrunners for the slot. However, a source told The Standard there is opposition to Junet's candidacy for any parliamentary leadership position. Junet has also come under fire on social media that he was part of those who allegedly bungled Raila's campaigns, claims that Azimio has refuted. Baringo Deputy Governor Charles Kipok has died. His death was confirmed by the county's Governor Benjamin Cheboy. Kipok died yesterday at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as he prepared to board a KQ flight to Mombasa. Speaking to the media from Lee Funeral Home, Cheboy acknowledged that Acting Director General for Health Patrick Amoth, who was also a passenger in the flight, was among doctors who tried to resuscitate Kipok to no avail. A family in Limuru is seeking justice after their 2 sons were brutally murdered in Nairobi's Kamulu neighborhood last week. Johnson Karuga, 26, and his brother Kelvin Kimani, 24, were last seen alive on the night of September 4th at a club in Kamulu area, according to reports. According to their father, Joseph Kimani, the family launched a search for them after they failed to return home on the second day, and their phones went unanswered. The bodies of the 2 men were discovered near a bridge in the Joska area a week later and taken to City Mortuary.
Naomba serikali na haswa DCI tafadhali waingilie hii maneno diposa tujue kiini ya hizi maneno juu watoto wetu hata kama kuna kitu yeyote walikuwa wamefanya tujue haswa ni wao walikuwa na makosa ama wenye waliwapiga ndio wenye walikuwa na makosa. Haswa sisi tunataka kujua.
That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, so we're looking at traffic building up in the city. After 7 o'clock is probably where we see most of action on most days. On the Thika Superhighway, it's coming in heavy into the CBD, and we're seeing the same thing happening on Kiambu Road as well. All right, we thought we would escape it, but not this morning. Sorry, there's traffic on James Gishuru, and it's getting out towards Waiaki Way. And we're going to cross over using that Red Hill Link Road, but there will still be some traffic for some time. Ring Road Western's already packing up, coming in from Naivasha Road, out towards Gitanga, and then on to James Gishuru. That's already looking pretty busy. Coming off Jogo Road, that started early, and now we're seeing an influx into the CBD, really heavy inbound traffic. And so traffic hour starts early this morning, and it looks like it'll be there for some time. Hopefully we can keep things safe. I know visibility is poor in a westerly direction out of the city, so please be careful. Fog lights up, you will need them. Let's speak SpiceFM KE on Twitter and try as best as possible to keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
7 minutes after 7. Good morning, and how are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. This is a Situation Room on SpiceFM. We also live stream the show on YouTube and Facebook. SpiceFM KE. It's the 15th day of September 2022, day 2 of 100 days. Yes, we are counting them from day 1 to day 100 of the Ruto administration. Things that he said he's going to do and implement within the first 100 days. We've already seen some, and we are waiting for the others. Bei ya mafuta imepanda on day 2. Fertilizer inakuja maybe on day 16. We'll wait and see on what day it comes. Right? Mombasa port operations. Now that one is, he said it's not yet operational. But let's see how many days it will happen. Anyway, all those things are happening within the first 100 days. Our job is to remind the administration and to track the progress. It's also Thursday. It's Justice Thursdays. It's a day that we talk the language. My lord, my ladies, may it please the court. We have a judge in the room, the Honorable Dr. Imana Laibuta, judge of the Court of Appeal. Before we welcome him to the show, let me read the day's proverb, courtesy of C.T. Muga. It's an ancient Egyptian proverb. The worst things, to be in bed and sleep not, to want for one who comes not, to try to please and please not. To be in bed and sleep not, to want for one who comes not, to try to please and please not. The worst things, according to Egyptians. Those ones. My lord, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You know, you have to try now this language. Say it.
Yes. My lord. Right?
Good morning, your lordship.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you. The Situation Room, day 2 for me.
Day 2
as well.
Day 2 for you as well.
Right.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
We are here today to talk about a new piece of legislation, and this one concerns children. The Children's Act 2022, which has repealed the Children's Act of 2001, and looking at the rights of children in very many things. You know, children, we talk about children. At what point do these rights start applying? Is it at the point of conception or at the point of birth?
Well, I guess rights have everything to do with the ability to assert them. You can assert a right unless you're alive. And life begins at conception.
Right.
And I guess that's where the right to life begins for children.
Okay. So then from that point when a child is conceived up to the age 18, there are very many things that they're entitled to. Some of those rights are guaranteed in the Constitution: right to education, right to health, right to accessing a clean environment, and then there are all those rights to, parenthood and protection and care, and then we'll also talk about very many things like adoption and matters of taking care of children. So let's start from the very beginning. What is it that the Children's Act 2022 has that's different from the previous laws?
Let's remember that we had the Children Act of 2001, and before that we had an array of statutes that were designed to implement various rights of the child, parental responsibilities and so forth. But come 2001, we had the Children Act that consolidated all those statutory provisions. But remember, we also had the Constitution 2010, which was a real revolutionary statute law that brought in quite a number of things, including the rights of the child and Article 53. Now, that made it necessary then to reform the law on children, not just consolidating, but as well as to be sure that we were aligned to the Constitution, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, the African Convention and protocols, and as well borrowing from other jurisdictions to see what was necessary to make it more vibrant. And that's why we came up with the 2022 Act. It's a 2022 Act, yes, but it began way, way, way back. It's taken about 10, maybe 12 years to reform the statute law.
Hey.
It's a very intricate...
Why? Why take so long?
Good question. The rights of the child is a very dynamic sector with lots of, both state and non-state agencies. A great deal of interest, of course, by NGOs, CBOs, and non-state agencies that have a stake in it. Good question to ask, but I must say this. Life really revolves around the child.
Yeah.
Children. You ask me, I'll be talking about children. I mean, that's a subject we are all excited to discuss, whether in courts, whether in public, in the community. Children are really the center of our attention in everyday life.
Okay. Even as we look at this Act 2022 and look at what was in existence in 2001, going into then 2002, the question is, even when you talk about the rights of the child, there might be a misconstrued notion that because this child then cannot speak for themselves, quote unquote, until they've attained the age of 18, in Kenya at least, that then the custodian of that child, the parents or the guardian, then is in a position to do as they wish as concerns the well-being of the child. That is something that may have been practiced for some time. What would you have to say about that? Because essentially what we are saying is that if everything revolves around this child, that there are some things, regardless of the situation, that that child must have. But then the custodianship or the guardianship of this child is handed over to parents because they cannot take care of themselves. Yes. So where do we play within those lines? Must parents always take into consideration the rights of this child, regardless of the fact that they are their parents? And what exactly are we saying when it comes to that?
I think the one thing we must be conscious of is this. That the rights of the child, the care and protection of a child is a responsibility that we must all bear. Children cannot take care of themselves. From birth to adulthood to age 18, they need care and protection. That care and protection rests squarely on the shoulders of not just the parents, but guardians that may be appointed to exercise that care and responsibility. Rests on the shoulders of the community, and above all, on the state that must guarantee and facilitate the realization of the rights of the child. So it's a universal responsibility for all, not just for parents, not just for the community, but for the state as well as everyone that is in contact with those children, including judicial officers that process matters relating to the care and protection of children, particularly the children that are in contact or in conflict with the law.
We talk about, rights of children, especially when it comes to access to justice, and we've had these conversations here on the show a number of times. When it comes to access to justice, we see sometimes children being taken to court. At what age does a child start bearing criminal responsibility over things that they've done?
Shamefully, the 2001 Act had the criminal responsibility set at age 8.
Where?
Figure this. A child of 8 years, what does he or she really know about?
Standard 1, Standard 2 child.
Yes, you're talking about Standard 2, Standard 3 at best. What do they know about criminal responsibility? Do they even know what a crime is? They do things, they are mischievous, they do all manner of things, they trial and error kind of life. But what we have done with the 2022 Act is to raise that bar to age 12. A time we believe is ripe for children to be able to distinguish between right and wrong. And that's it.
But when
however, you've asked about the justice system.
Yes.
What this act has done is to have a consciously designed system of diverting children from the criminal justice system to what we call diversion under the children's courts, to ensure that we are not just punishing children, we're not just trying and punishing them for the wrongs that they have done, but we're trying to mold them from that wrongdoing into good citizens, people who grow up responsibly and able to make a living for themselves and be productive in society.
Judge, when we say criminal responsibility,
yes,
a 12-year-old can bear criminal responsibility. Are we saying, and you're saying it's because at this age, then they are already at an age where they can discern right and wrong.
Yep.
But can they discern crime, responsibility, and the consequences?
Yes, we believe that with the parental responsibility that rests on the shoulders of the parents and the community and the way they are brought up and schooled or educated, they must have been inculcated into knowledge of what is right and wrong, and really what crime is. I mean, if you ask a child of 2 years, 3 years, if they're able to answer your questions, you ask them, is it good to kill somebody?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you, no. Should you steal the other, children's pencils or pens or rulers or books in school? They'll tell you, no, that is wrong. They begin very early in life. However, at age 12, we believe that they're able to make decisions. Having known what is good, what is wrong, they should be able to make decisions. And good decisions at that, because that is what we aim at.
If that's the case, that by the age of 12, they're able to make good decisions, they have a handle on what is right and it's wrong, why do we have this highly contentious issue of then who they choose when it comes to sex? That at the age of 18, we are saying that we can jail a young boy because he had relations with a 14-year-old girl and she's still underage. Meanwhile, we're saying at 12, they can bear criminal responsibility because they can make a decision between what is right and wrong, but over their bodies and over sexual relationships, then we draw the line.
Yeah. Into the one thing you find is the golden thread that runs through this 2022 Act is the principle of the best interest of the child. And it's very, very protectionist. Why use the word protectionist? Because we want a child to grow up in a wholesome, healthy manner, both mentally, emotionally, physically. Now, when it comes to sexual contact, children experiment as early as, not just in teens, but very early in age.
Yes.
8 years, 9 years, 10 years, they start experimenting. They start realizing that they have these things we call reproductive organs. They start touching each other. They start doing. Now, we need to protect them because we want children to grow up in a way that is healthy for them, mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, economically. Now, that protection must extend to the realm of sexual contact at an early age. And that's why we say that, look, if you defile a child, then you must take the responsibility. But you touch on a very controversial issue of punishing a boy that defiles a girl that is underage. I think we've begun shifting from punishing to reforming and rehabilitating those children, because both of them are children. However, when it comes to an adult defiling a child, that adult must take the responsibility of the penal consequences that come with it. Because again, this child, much as they become sensitive about their sexuality and so forth, they're really not that conscious of the consequences that follow. And as children, if two are involved, then we need to take a more reformative approach to it, rather than punish the boy and let the girl go. But of course, we've seen also adult ladies taking responsibility for defiling young boys, and that must go both ways. But the approach now really is to try and
it's more reformative
and
rehabilitative.
Yeah, it's more rehabilitative than punitive.
Judge, from where you sit, at the age of 18, is that a child or an adult when it comes to consent in terms of sexual relations?
Well, the law, the constitution is that a child is below age 18. When you attain the age of 18, you really are an adult. And therefore, we believe that you are mature to make conscious decisions and bear the responsibility when it comes to sexual matters. There are other jurisdictions where it is 21 years of age to reach adulthood, but here, I don't ask me why, but we choose 18, which I believe is a fair deal when it comes to reckoning the age of maturity.
Then pushing on the conversation about rehabilitation and trying to bring these children back to the fold, does the Children's Act 2022 also talk about the facilities that are available in the country for these services of rehabilitation?
Oh yes, we have an elaborate policy, legislative and institutional framework for the realization of the rights of the child, ranging from parental care, foster care, adoption, going up to the institutions of the the National Council for Children's Services that gives policy direction and supervision of other institutions. We have, of course, the ministry, the state departments responsible for the rights of the child. We have children, charitable children institutions, the county governments that run all manner of social welfare programs, schools, that deal with education, the right to education, and a whole array of statutory provisions in this act that ensure that the rights of the child are realized, whether it's education, whether it's health, parental care, and protection, judicial services that are quite child-centered, and so forth. So we have an elaborate framework for the realization of the rights of the child under this statute law.
At least it's there on paper. We'll talk about the others, when you talk about the foster and custody and all the others.
Yeah.
But when a child enters the judicial system and they've come before court, let's say at the age of 12, and then they have to be taken into, go through custodial sentence, where are they taken? Into these, Boston institutions and the others. And what does the law say about their rights while in those institutions?
Yeah. What this act has done is to divert children from the criminal justice system, to ensure that the children who are in conflict with the law are processed or dealt with in a very, very, what shall I say? We talk of handling kids,
with kid gloves.
Kid gloves, yes. And that's exactly what we put on when they're brought before children's courts. Now, these courts are suitably designed to ensure that children are comfortable. Some of them, by the way, if you visit those courts, you really they're just at play. And you find that they probably are not even very conscious of what it is that is happening, because the environment is designed in such a way as to make it very comfortable for them. You find paintings on the wall, cartoons, things like that. They're handled by people who hold their hands and sit with them, talk to them nicely. Even the law enforcement officers are not supposed to be uniformed, because that can be scary to children. So the environment is such that the children are made very, very comfortable. It's also a very private affair. Privacy is ensured. They are in company of parents or guardians, people they are comfortable with, children officers, magistrates who are schooled to ensure that they know how to handle children, so that the environment is such that you are trying to ensure that much as you are taking corrective measures for what these children have done, the corrective measures are really to enhance the development of these children, so that they grow up in responsible citizens, more than just punishing them And that's why even the punitive measures are really relaxed. You take them into what we commonly refer to as pastoral institutions or corrective institutions, rehabilitation schools, so that what you are doing is to rehabilitate them, not really to punish, but to make them, come out corrected and able to live, productive lives.
Right.
And the one thing that the Act has done is to provide for a very elaborate diversion framework. And there are levels of diversion, 3 levels of diversion. At the very apex, of course, being what you may call, the need to detain them in a rehabilitation home or school for correction, and right at the bottom, perhaps just making the child realize that you've done wrong. Can you apologize? What are you able to do? Are you able to render a service to the person you've done wrong to? Just to get to know that there is a measure of responsibility that they must bear for their wrongful conduct.
We'll continue the conversation shortly after this break, 7:30. Kenya's biggest conversation, #Justice Thursdays, and the Honourable Justice Dr. Emmanuel Aibuta from the Court of Appeal is here with us today. We are talking about the new Children's Act, the Children's Act 2022, which has repealed the old one of 2001. Engineer Irina Kothraila says, I was among the children that took part in drafting of the Children's Act 2001 when I was 10 years old in Class 4 at Bondo Township Primary. After, in 2003, the Orphans and Vulnerable Children's Bill.
For OVCs?
Very well, Engineer Koth. She's actually participated in the drafting of these laws. Following this conversation online, we are live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and online. It's 15th of September, 10 days to the 25th of September. When what happens, Ndu?
When the 50th edition of the Concours d'Elegance will take place at the Nairobi Racecourse. It's going to be an excellent Sunday of looking at all these vintage vehicles and having an opportunity to participate in great fashion, and a good afternoon where kids will also be able to enjoy the day. The 50th edition of the Concours d'Elegance, the Africa Concours d'Elegance, taking place on the 25th of September.
At the racecourse.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
When you think about education hubs, Japan has long been at the list of preferred destinations to provide world-class programs. The Study in Japan Global Network Project and Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology in Japan are hosting an online event for students and professionals looking to further their education and join master's and PhD programs in social sciences such as internal public policy and conflict studies, economics and management, and sciences such as information technology, environmental sciences, biomedical science, agriculture, engineering, and veterinary medicine. Join the Study in Japan online fair for Sub-Saharan Africa 2022 on the 30th of September and on the 1st of October by registering on 2022.studyinjapan-africa-portal.com. Don't miss out.
Showmax has done it again. County 49.
Watele hoye!
A gripping political drama that follows the ongoings within Bwatele County, Kenya's fictional 49th county, will premiere on Showmax on Thursday, the 25th of August.
If any of our demands are not met, your governor will be executed live online.
Tune into the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every weekday to find out more about County 49 and why you need to subscribe to Showmax for this and more premium Kenyan content.
If I look at the Premier League table, Manchester City is on top. Arsenal, number 2 in the table. Absolutely. How did Brentford get to number 3 in the Premier League table? They beat us like Burukenge.
Sugar and spice.
What's your love language, French?
My love language is I want to be left alone.
What can't you compromise on?
Quality time and acts of service. Words of affirmation tutapata hata kanisani.
We do this
11 to 3 p.m. Monday to
Conditions in
Friday.
Nairobi at 14, highs of 21. We'll see highs of 24 in a sunny Nakuru at 14. It's raining in Nyeri at 14, highs of 19, and we'll see highs of 23 in a sunny Eldoret currently at 13. Light rain in Mombasa continues at 23, highs of 29, and the high will be 28 in Malindi, where it's also raining at 23. 17 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 27 in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 17. Looking into Kampala, it's sunny at 18, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 30 in a rainy Dar es Salaam at 23, 9 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 24, and highs of 29 in Lagos, where it's mostly cloudy at 25. Rain showers in Kinshasa this morning at 22, we'll see highs of 30, down to lows of 22.
Chilled Spice.
All right, some movement as you're approaching Maradima, and that's coming inbound off Mombasa Road. It looks a bit sticky as you just get over that and then try to get through to General Motors. Where we're seeing the most of it this morning, however, is on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city. That hit like a ton of bricks, and it's looking really heavy well into Kiambu County this morning, way past that outer ring junction and almost at Clayworks today. Kiambu Road, also inbound traffic is really heavy. We're looking at outbound as well, but it's probably the multiple lanes that we are seeing. It's heavy on Limuru Road, coming out of Westlands, looking the same as well. James Gishuru now is when it has packed up quite some, and we're likely to see a crossover to Kuna Road and the Red Hill Link Road as well. Mzima Springs, Gitanga Road, coming off Naivasha Road, Gong Road, all of that. A mess this morning. Traffic hour has begun in proper. Let's know what's going on where you are, and then let's talk on SpiceFM. KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
23 to 8, Justice Thursday's conversation continues with the Honorable Justice Dr. Imana Laibuta, Judge of the Court of Appeal. He's here with us this morning to talk about a new law, the Children's Act 2022, Opportunities for the Kenyan Child. My Lord, there was a moratorium on issues of adoption, where foreigners were not allowed to now adopt Kenyan children. But also there were very many issues surrounding adoption of children, even by Kenyans. Lack of understanding of the processes, lack of clear guidelines on how one goes through this. Has the Children's Act addressed adoption of children in Kenya?
Very, very stringently. I think we had come to a situation where children had become, hotcakes, a hot commodity, where you could walk into an informal settlement, wherever, and buy a child at 60K. Take it to the US, take it to Europe, and you never know what becomes of that child. Some were sold into slavery, others into prostitution. And whatever, others into basically domestic servants. Of course, not to mention that there are those who had a good life, but we never, ever got to know what became of those children. This law has made it necessary to process adoption in a way that we can track where this child comes from, who adopts this child. The procedure is tracked in such a way that we know that it's a clean deal. We are not engaged in sale or purchase of children. They are tracked wherever they go, whether it's domestic or intercountry adoption. Of course, in international law, treaty instruments to which we have, Kenya is a signatory, allows intercountry adoption, but we've made it in such a way that we can tell If it's an intercountry adoption, which is a measure of last resort, and I will explain that shortly, we have made sure that we are able to track where that child goes, the conditions under which that child lives, until that child attains adulthood. Now, what is it that we have done under this act to ensure that that is possible? One, the act prioritizes, cultural harmony in the process of adoption. If you're a Christian, the preferred process of adoption is that you adopt a child that is from a Christian background, Islamic background as well, probably from the same ethnic background.
But you can't always tell, Judge.
Yeah, you may not be able to tell, that's fine. But remember, when children are taken into protection institutions like charitable children institutions, the background is known. I mean, some investigation is done. They are known. If it's a child that is of age to tell that I used to go to this mosque or this church, I mean, you can tell. The name of the child tells a lot. So you are able to tell. So that you are able to synchronize that cultural, social background so that you don't have a very sharp, shift in the environment to which this child is brought in, because that in itself comes with some shocks. Let me give an example. I mean, if you walked into to Somalia, adopt a child that has been brought up in an Islamic and Somali culture, bring him or her to Kiambu, you can imagine what that change might mean to that child. So there is that preference. Secondly, of course, intercountry adoption is a priority, domestic. Domestic adoption is the priority, and intercountry adoption really must be the last resort.
Okay. Yeah. And still on that, I think the conversations have now started to marry over the last few years, especially because there are very many would want to be parents who find themselves not able to have children naturally and then want to go the way of adoption. And now that you're saying that the preference is domestic adoption, obviously, from the judicial system, is it then being made easier for Kenyans to adopt children in Kenya?
Yes. Yes. In actual fact, we've had for a long time charitable children's institutions accommodating children up to the age of 18, and then they exit for many years. And this law now makes it necessary that if you are to hold a child in a charitable children's institution, it must be for a period not exceeding 3 years. And the same with foster care, not exceeding 3 years. So that at the end of it, if this is not a child that is being restored to its biological parents, let that child be adopted.
Okay.
That is the move going forward. Yeah.
So adoption starts with the home that is taking care of this child. Now, very many people would assume that, we're talking about the children's homes. Is it possible for an other environment where a child can be adopted from?
Yes. By the way, charitable children's institutions are what we refer to as children homes.
Yes.
Children are placed there for accommodation when they really have nowhere else to go or to be taken to. It's a protection measure. But you can adopt a child right from the village. The child is living with perhaps some relatives or some parents who want to give the child to adoption. And that as well is possible.
Okay. You mentioned something which is interesting, because we have maybe up until now, the Children's Act 2022, that there have been charitable children's homes that have had children living there the length and breadth of their entire existence. What happens to them? Because there are institutions today that have taken in newborn children and they are with them until the age of 18. They find ways, whether it is by, help from external sources, to educate them right up until the final level. What happens to them now if they've been in the business of this? Because in terms of categorization, they are still categorized as children's homes.
Yeah, I like your use of the word in the business of. And believe me, some children's homes have been a business, quite a number. You've seen some mushrooming in all manner of neighborhoods and bringing in children, and some are borrowed for the day. For fundraising and things like that. We have a very conscious shift to ensure that, one, charitable children's institutions are also adoption societies. And the thing they must do is, from the day that child is brought into their care and protection, they begin a process of identifying possibilities of foster care. Again, not for more than 3 years. And towards adoption, ultimately. I know some, of course, have had children for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that must come to an end, because this is not business. We are in the business of ensuring that we have the best interest of the child, not the best interest of these charitable institutions. And that is why the institutional framework now ensures that we bring up children from those homes to foster care, ultimately to adoption.
What is the difference between the home and the foster care?
Home and foster care, yes. You see, the home is institutional. Foster care is bringing this child under a roof that is shared in a family. And that is why we have very elaborate provisions on foster care as well. In fact, the intention is to have a process of registration of foster parents who are in waiting and willing to foster children. The hope being that they would eventually adopt them so that they have legal parents.
What is that process of fostering a child? At the point of fostering, are you their legal parent or are you just a guardian? Is there any expectation on the state, for example, to provide for this child while it's under your care? What are those provisions? And
good question. You see, a foster parent is really a parent. Delete the word foster.
It's a parent.
Once the child comes under your shelter, you really are the parent to provide for them care and protection. And the Act does provide for, of course, including the regulations as well. I was privileged to draft not just the Act, but also the regulations that are shortly coming into force. The statutory process is to ensure that, one, the foster parent is capable of taking care of that child. So an assessment is made. What is your social economic, standing? Is this home suitable for this child that we're bringing in? And are you able to take care of this child? So that we're not plucking a child from some protective care into a home where the child suffers, depravity no food, no schooling, no. So we look at all that. So your ability is key, and that's why the registration process, which I hope will begin sooner than later, should ensure that children have a place to go as soon as they are placed under protection, either in a children's institution or a child protection unit or rescue center, so that they enjoy the comfort of family life. And of course, there is also a process of supervision, so that when a child is placed in foster care under foster family or parent, the children officers are able to visit and see how these children are faring, so that from time to time they're able to tell, should this child remain here or should this child be taken elsewhere? There's all that. But you asked, is there really a parent? Yes, it is a parent, but perhaps in very loose terms. But once they are adopted and hopefully by the same foster family, then of course, those are legal parents.
Okay.
With all manner of rights, including the right of inheritance and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking at the rights of a child, what you've said, is very clear that, being taken care of, and one of those is the right to education. There have been some lines that have become blurry, because should those who are taking care of this child, whether it is their parents or whomever, should they be in a situation whereby they are not able to take them to school? How is then that worked out? Because there's ability, then there's also, lack of desire, things like that in some cases. How is that worked out to ensure that this child accesses the right to be educated? How then do you sort out those issues?
Yeah, well, those are difficult issues. Even for children that are not under foster care or adoption. There are many in the village that don't go to school.
Yes.
But you see, the Basic Education Act ensures that parents, whatever their needs, whatever their situation, take children to school. It's even more important when a child is under foster care, because the supervisory process and framework ensures that those children access information. In fact, there is the Act also establishes, or rather proposes, the establishment of a child protection fund that should take care of some of those needs. However, if it's a child under foster care or adoption, the adoption process or the foster care process is such that they will establish the ability of those parents to take that child to school, so that the right to education, health, protection, leisure, and whatever is taken care of. And one of the things that the Act does, and the rules as well, is to ensure that a child brought into foster care is placed in a family that has suitable accommodation, not too many children. If you have 12, 13 children, we really don't want to burden you with.
But it shows I have ability.
with another.
If I can take care of 12.
Just add one. What are we talking about?
Well, I don't know. But, so the number of children and so forth, the environment, what recreational facilities does this family enjoy, and so forth. All that is taken care of, so that by the time that child is placed in foster care in that family, you are sure that child will enjoy the comfort of a family.
So the difference, as I understand it from you, Judge, is foster, you are parenting the child, but as a guardian.
Yes.
After you've adopted, then they become your legal child.
Yes.
And they've got the rights as any child that you've born.
That's it.
Now, let's talk about a child who's under foster care. During the period of being under foster care, this marriage dissolves.
Yeah.
So what happens now at that point?
Yeah, there is also the transmission of foster care, transmission of parental responsibility. And again, why the supervisory process is watertight is to ensure that in case there is dissolution of that marriage between two people under whom a child is placed in foster care, then of course a decision will be made as to where should this child next be placed. But let's also not forget that the foster care is short-lived. It should also be for a very short period, 3 years maximum, in the hope that this child is eventually adopted. And if the child has been adopted and there's dissolution of marriage, then the issue of custody, care, and maintenance comes in as between the spouses who have parted ways.
Right.
And that, I mean, that is as well as it goes for biological children. Yeah.
There's an issue that I want to ask. Does this law recognize surrogacy?
No. There was an attempt to bring that in. It was thrown out.
Why?
Well, I don't know. Perhaps ethical issues. Ethical issues. Because again, surrogacy was viewed. It was a very hot point for discussion. When drafting, I thought that a section of those who preferred the recognition of surrogacy should as well be recognized, and I put in a part for surrogacy, but the majority of stakeholders said no, we do not see that happening. If you want to have a child by so and so, have your child, get into foster care, adoption, or whatever it is. But surrogacy at some point was seen as a money-making, I mean, I could have a baby factory.
Baby factory.
Yes. I give birth for Eric Lati, and I get my 200,000, and 9 months later, I have another child for so and so. And for Njoroge, and I make a living out of giving
But
birth.
it's possible, Judge, for any parent in Kenya today to decide to give up their child for adoption.
Oh, sure, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it can still create that baby factory.
That's very well, but I'm not sure you give birth to 10, 20, hoping that they'll be adopted, because I don't think that's even workable anyway.
Sure.
You'll get tired.
I know I went down, but just one question that comes then when it comes to the unfortunate abuse of children.
Yeah.
And we have seen many cases when they then present themselves to court. Usually there has been negotiation between family members because unfortunately a lot of times the perpetrators are members of the family, especially when we're coming to sexual abuse. How then would this change going forward? Would it change? Because clearly, a child has been abused. There's been negotiation because of, economic reasons. How is this then sorted out going forward when it comes to, again, the rights of that child to not be abused?
When it comes to child abuse, sexual abuse and the likes, this law is not new. We've had law in place. Child abuse has been a crime. Sexual abuse has been all along a crime that is punishable very, very heavily. This law doesn't introduce anything new, but does lay responsibility on various institutions to ensure that action is taken to deal with child abuse. It does lay very clear ground on what abuse involves, including cybercrime, child labor, sexual abuse, and things like that. It's fairly elaborate, but it's not new. Now, you talk about family members negotiating and, sweeping everything under the carpet. That's a crime in itself. You are concealing a crime. The minute you are charged with sexual abuse of a child, trust me, you won't go free. We have many cases that come on appeal where people say, oh, I have now reformed. And these are people who have abused their little daughters, their little relatives, very young children. Oh, I have reformed, I have done this, I have done, because now I can be useful to this family. And we say, thank you very much, but remain in there for the life for which you've been convicted or for the number of years you have to serve.
Judge, we thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
Justice Thursdays with the Honorable Justice Dr. Imana Laibuta from the Court of Appeal. He's been here. He's among those that drafted the new Children's Law, the Children's Act 2022, and the regulations that also go with it. Asante for shedding light on this.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. Good morning. It's 8:01. Time for the news.
Odinga's ODM party members say they do not want Suna East MP Junet Mohammed for any parliamentary leadership position. The party is set to produce a National Assembly majority leader, and a meeting will be held tomorrow in Machakos County to decide on who will be considered. Former Minority Leader John Mbadi, former Minority Whip Junet Mohammed, and Ugunja lawmaker Opio Wandai are among the frontrunners for the slot. Sources, however, say there is opposition to Junet's candidacy. The source said that the Suna East MP enjoys Raila's favour, but MPs have linked him to the Azimio la Umoja leader's failures bid to the State House. Junet has been under fire on social media that he was part of those who allegedly bungled Raila's campaigns, claims that the Azimio la Umoja party has refuted. Siaya Governor James Orengo says former President Uhuru Kenyatta's decision to overlook 6 judges for promotion to the Court of Appeal and Environment Court was unjustified. In a statement, Orengo opined that the judges exceeded all requirements needed to take up the new positions after being recommended for the promotion by the Judicial Service Commission. The 6, Agri Mchele Lule, Weldon Korir, Joel Ngugi, John Odunga, and Judith Omange were part of a cohort of 40 judicial officers who were eligible for promotion in June 2021 after being vetted by the Judicial Service Commission. Kenyatta, however, initially said that the 6 were underqualified for the roles before later stating that they had underlying integrity issues based on findings from an alleged intelligence report. Following the swearing in of the judges yesterday, President William Ruto has vowed to lead from the front in upholding the rule of law.
I want to assure you that my administration will respect the independence of the judiciary, will respect the independence of all the other institutions in a manner that makes them efficient to deliver on their respective mandates. We will promote dialogue between institutions and positive engagement so that we can all focus on how to take Kenya to a higher level.
The Directorate of Criminal Investigations has dismissed reports on social media that 7 of their senior officers were forced to resign under unclear circumstances. In a statement, DCI acknowledged that the officers were no longer on their payroll, but refuted claims that they had been coerced to exit the service. The investigative body explained that the officers resigned to pursue their careers in the private sector as financial investigators, fraud experts, and IT specialists, among others. Now, citizens will have to dig deeper into their pockets for the next month after the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, increased the price of petroleum. In Nairobi, Super Petrol is up by 20 shillings and 18 cents and will now retail at 179 shillings and 30 cents per litre. Diesel is up by 25 shillings to retail at 165 shillings per litre, while kerosene is up by 20 shillings to retail at 147 shillings and 94 cents per litre. The prices will be enforced from September 15th to October 14th. During his inauguration, President Ruto hinted that he would do away with subsidies on fuel and food, arguing that they are a huge burden to the exchequer and often lead to product shortages. A federal jury yesterday convicted R. Kelly of several child pornography and sex abuse charges in his hometown of Chicago, delivering another legal blow to a singer who used to be one of the biggest R&B stars in the world. Kelly, 55, was found guilty on 3 counts of child pornography and 3 counts of child enticement. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
One 102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu.
Looking at all of that, moving out towards James Gishuru, over that drift, and then onto Wayaki Way today is really slow. It's moving slowly. We're also seeing slow-moving traffic on Gong Road, which is feeding off from Naivasha Road today. So it's bumper to bumper. No, literally bumper to bumper. As you're approaching the City Mortuary roundabout, out towards Community, it's going to slow you down some if that's the direction that you're going in. The Thika Superhighway, that's a total mess. That Outer Ring Junction coming in just from the Greater Thika Road. Now, whatever is going on Kiambu Road today is tears. It's crying. It's heavy traffic. It's bumper to bumper. It's in and outbound. Folks are just trying to get to where they're going, but it looks like it's going to have some tears today. Really heavy traffic there. Coming off Mombasa Road, I think we dealt with that already. It shouldn't be too bad. Everybody's feeding into Outer Ring, Juja Road, Kangundo Road, Manyanja Road, trying to get out there. You might not want to go towards the Thika Superhighway. Think about Juja Road getting into the CBD. There's an option for you. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room,
All right,
the only way to start your day.
Good morning and how are you doing? Welcome to the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on SpiceFM. On our SpiceFM social media handles, SpiceFM KE on Facebook and YouTube, and also live on KTN Home. In this hour, we are going to talk about profiling corruption scandals from the Moi regime into the Kibaki regime, into the Uhuru regime. We'll be joined by journalist John Alan Namu, but we'll also be joined by Wajiro Ekonyo from the Institute for Social Accountability. Before Wajiro says hello, let's hear the Egyptian proverb, which is from Egypt.
Wow.
Just to be sure.
Some profound things.
I know, very observant.
The worst things: to be in bed and sleep not, to want for one who comes not, or to try to please and please not. Worst things: to be in bed and sleep not, to want for one who comes not, or to try to please and please not.
Where?
Is there anything worse than that? Are things getting worse?
I can imagine there's a number of people who are in bed who are not getting sleep on account of recent events. And they did not get what they wanted. They wanted and got not. I missed the last part. This is a very deep proverb.
Trying to please and please not.
Yeah, well, this one needs a lot of reflection. Where is CT?
Charles, please. Charles.
Oh, Charles.
Excuse me.
Sir Charles.
Yes.
Doing the royal
Not Sir
business.
Charles. King Charles.
Oh, I see. I see. Even as we have our own royalty.
Yes.
Please.
King Charles has taken a couple of days off. Yeah.
Right. There are many events going on.
Oh, yes.
He can also have his moment.
Yes.
And in his absence, here I am.
Wajiro, how are
Working
you?
hard. I'm fine.
Uh-huh.
I'm fine. And I'm happy
under
to
the
be here.
circumstances.
I'm fine. I did not qualify. Who asked you
You
to
know what they
qualify
say about
for
people
me?
who say, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
What?
No, that means don't ask me any. Leave me alone.
I'm fine.
If you go beyond that now, we may kosana.
I'm fine means just you leave me alone.
Yes, up to there. Usipite hapo.
Wachana na mimi. Umeniuliza tumemalizana.
I'm dealing with my issues. I'm managing my situation. So enough.
John Alan Namu.
Yes.
From Africa Uncensored.
Good morning.
You, how are you?
I am breathless.
Jonathan,
Yes.
you haven't heard there's a thing called the expressway that we are paying for the next how many years?
You know, I come from the wrong side of the expressway.
Oh, I see.
So I was coming using the bypass from Magadi Road, and the traffic was proper gagna. It was really packed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
On
so
the southern bypass?
No. Magadi Road.
On Magadi Road
yeah,
itself.
on Magadi Road. Then once I got onto the bypass, it was easy. So I think I'm just now a bit breathless and panicked that I came late this morning. My apologies.
Wow.
Good to see you, Wanjiro.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, and
Yes.
of course to the both of you, of course.
Why, thank you, John.
Great to see you.
Good to have. So, John Alan Assange is here.
We have our own Assange. Who has his work cut out?
Yes.
Given recent events.
Please, can your prayers end there, just with the name? You know where Assange is now, eh?
Yeah. Actually, that's true.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
But he's here because of some work that African Censored has done, and they have unleashed a dossier called the Whizzy Leaks.
Is it a dossier really? But okay, I'll take that.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll continue. But before we go into Whizzy Leaks,
yes,
you recently had a conversation with the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. April has been very busy. Of course, every 14th, that is the busy day for April.
Oh, yeah.
Now, with the new administration coming in, they had to have a busy day with the new administration coming in with a new shift in policy with regards to the fuel subsidy, which basically is a fuel harambe that we contribute to, and then we take the money from the kitty.
Yeah.
What did he tell you?
Well, he told me essentially that the stabilization fund is close to empty, and the stabilization fund is a euphemism essentially for a subsidy, right? So the stabilization fund is money that's raised through taxes and other means to be able to ameliorate the price of fuel when it gets too expensive, when there are international shocks, etc. But now, over the sustained period from mid 2021. Going into now the war in Ukraine and some of and then of course the value of the shilling against the dollar having impacted how much we can spend on fuel. We've spent a lot of money, and oil marketers. So this part he hasn't told me, but this I know from other sources that the government owes oil marketers quite a bit of money. And think about it this way: if you're not one of the big 4, big 5 oil marketers, and you have a credit facility of say 200 million for product, and the subsidy doesn't come in to pay that amount, then you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And so what that could mean, if it's not managed properly, is that not only will Kenyans be under pressure, but oil marketers themselves, the smaller ones, and going also to the bigger ones, will also be under pressure to keep their businesses afloat. So he was of the very balanced view that subsidies are not a good thing, but they are necessary in various times. But they can't. I don't think it's sustainable. And the advice that I think the EPRA is going to be giving is, feed it bit by bit, remove the subsidy bit by bit, and hopefully as prices of crude trend downwards as they have been, we'll meet somewhere in the middle where once the subsidy is completely removed, then the price of fuel has also gone down. But that doesn't seem to be happening. You heard what OPEC was saying, that the prices have fallen low enough. And so meaning that we could be seeing now another upward trend, especially going into the fall, going into winter in Europe and other parts. And of course, the war in Ukraine is still raging.
So the price has dropped in terms of global price, global crude for the product that we're going to be consuming for the next 1 month.
Yeah.
However, the price at the pump has gone up because of various factors. What are those factors?
So there's a 45-day time lag between the price falling internationally and us feeling it here. That is for various reasons, import logistics, etc. And what that means is that it's not going to translate now, perhaps a little later, perhaps with the next few shipments of oil over the next 45, to 60 days, then we'll see a slight decrease. So maybe next month there might be a slight decrease. There might be, right? But then if you see prices trending upwards again, that's temporary, right? So that's possibly what's going to happen. So it's not that the government has shikiliad somewhere. It's just that the product hasn't reached, the cheaper product hasn't reached
the market yet. Okay, so subsidy removed on super petrol, subsidy retained for diesel and kerosene. But all indications are it's a step by step. We're heading towards zero, complete removal of subsidy. And hopefully then also complete removal of the Petroleum Development Levy.
Well, I think that's something for this new administration to think about. One of the things that Mr. Kipok was talking about was, look, we might want to think about taxes that can be withdrawn from time to time, but there's an opportunity cost to that, right? So the energy sector contributes a lot of money in tax revenue to the government, and the government needs every shilling. So if they remove that, then they are foregoing something else somewhere. I think we're really in a catch-22 situation here, where debt is, where I think this year and next year, Wanjiri will correct me if I'm wrong, we are paying the highest amounts of our repayments will happen this year and next year. A lot of observers of Kenya have been saying that if there's a year to default, it'll either be this year or next year. And if we're finagling our taxes like that, then it's going to be tough. It's a really fine line to walk.
It is a fine line, and of course, if you look at the manifesto, what the incoming administration has said is that they want to deal with regressive taxation because they recognize that taxation is impacting the lower income disproportionately. That means they may be looking at, things like it will be the excise taxes, the VAT taxes. They may look at some aspects of that fuel levy. It is a fine line, but on the other hand, if we think about why we are in this kind of tax burden, tax hole, it's because of runaway expenditure. A lot of which was, really misinformed, not well targeted. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of corruption. So the thing to watch is what they're going to do with the supplementary budget.
That's true.
And where they will move the money from and to. And we hope they'll have clear, impartial, and, a good balancing of issues. Because if you think back to 2020, when both supply and demand crashed, and there was then a reprieve in terms of pay as you earn, and of course the VAT, that allowed people to survive. And there's a sense in which the economy was able to keep running because we weren't overtaxed. So Kenyans are overtaxed, and we need a reprieve, and that means cutting back on the expenditure and reallocating.
And by a fine line, I really don't think that the Ruto administration has the luxury to even start to think about,
stealing anything.
It's not even stealing, just even misappropriation.
All right.
Of course, there are people who are going to come in there and say, hey, Sahi, now it's our time. Those are the ones who have to be held at bay, if not completely kept away from any access to whatever resources the government has. And I agree, Wanjiro. I think we are overtaxed, and especially the population of people who are being taxed, both in informal employment, but also informally. We really need to think about how we're going to be able to balance that, and I hope that this is front of mind for the Ruto administration. Honestly,
Clearly, it's only for us to see. I mean, I'd said earlier we had asked him this question during the presidential debate, and on the issue of fuel prices and the cost of living, and he had talked about, there's some of these levies and taxes that are imposed on fuel need to be reviewed, and so we asked him, so what is the way forward? And guess what his answer? What his answer was? Enough is enough.
That was a setup question.
He said that they are going to look at how much the landing cost is and how much is going in terms of fuel and levies, and see where do you strike a balance, even if you remove the subsidy. So what else do you do to make it affordable for people to keep moving, for the economy to keep being energized?
I think the biggest asset that a Kenyan will have today is their calculator app on their phone, because these kinds of levies and stuff are going to impact you in such a real way that you're going to have to be calculating literally on the go how to be able to use the money that you have. It's a weird time that we're in.
Completely.
Yes.
So African Census has been doing some work, which is looking at all corruption scandals that have been recorded or reported since the Moi days to the Kibaki days to the Uhuru days. So tell us about that project.
So we've been challenged by members of the public to start thinking about how differently we're going to report corruption. And one of the things that many people have been frustrated by is that when a new scandal hits the headline, they come in like floods and waves, and you almost can't keep up. You feel like you're drowning in under the weight of every new scandal. And so the one thing that we wanted to do, the two things actually that we've been trying to work on. Number one is to explain how corruption actually works in different sectors of society, and that's now that predates WikiLeaks. That's in our explainer stories that we've been doing. So how goods are smuggled across the border, how that impacts you, how CDF is stolen, how that impacts you, even how and we try to look at corruption broadly, even how votes are, how voters are disenfranchised, and how that impacts you, because we recognize that without people understanding what the system that underpins corruption is, then they'll always be limited to just complaining about it. But then now comes WikiLeaks. So WikiLeaks was a fairly ambitious project, and it, I have to say here, it is still a work in progress. You don't build an app and say it's complete. It's not like a car. You have to keep building. And what we wanted to do is to tell Kenyans, okay, fine. In as much as corruption exists, I think we have to understand just how far back this chain of corruption reaches, how each administration has measured against the other in terms of corruption, misappropriation of funds, and something now a little deeper than that, why each administration seems to be getting worse and worse, right, with some reprieves in between, because as a good colleague on these Twitter streets, one dear Njoya likes to say, and which is true, corruption is systemic. And so if there's anything that people should read from WikiLeaks, it's not so much that, Uhuru compares worse than the other, even though that's fairly obvious. It is that corruption is systemic, it's long-running, and it's embedded in the way we do things, especially in the public sphere. Now, it is not only the public space that has corruption. If anything, there's a very strong nexus between private and public corruption. But what we chose to do in our methodology was to look first at public corruption. And the methodology looked at media reports, looked at reports from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and its predecessor, the Office of the Auditor General, the ODPP, and the documentation that has come out, as well as, like I said, media reports and other commissions and audits that have taken place in the past. So perhaps to preempt a question, why not since 63? We could even ask, why not since 1895? Because corruption has happened even in the colonial regime, and there have been records of that. And my very simple, perhaps not as satisfying answer is that the kind of search terms that we're using to crawl this data gave us richer data sets from 78 onwards, as opposed to 63. Now, 63 is from 63 to 78, that's much more laborious. Like you have to go through it physically, and that will do over time as we deepen the data set that we have. So long answer, but I hope you have your response, Eric.
So it's not necessarily the amount of corruption in a regime. It is the amount of corruption that has been recorded in a regime.
Yes.
It is what you find in public records.
Exactly.
There could have been some corruption that was not recorded.
Yes.
But you just miss it. So could this also be an indication, like you say, Uhuru's appears to be more than Kibaki's, appears to be more than Moi's and all? Is it because of also the openness of the society?
For sure. There are many things that have happened, especially in the advent of the 2010 Constitution, that have allowed for more openness in analyzing the country's resources and the country's spending. The Office of the Auditor General had become very vocal, with its reports becoming, something of public fodder for discussion. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, as well as the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, those are people who've been a lot more forthright than they had been even in the Kibaki days. In terms of looking at corruption. Then we have other agencies, the Asset Recovery Agency, and I'd say this is the benefit and the beauty of having freer press than we did in the Kibaki days, in the Moi days, and even to an extent in the early Uhuru days. So yes, there'll obviously be that, but you also have to remember that the budgets were smaller. Back then, in the Moi days, and I think Kibaki, was it in 2007 that we had our first 1 trillion shilling budget, right? So it's the trillion shilling phase of our growth isn't that old, and so that would mean that there'd be more to steal.
We have to look at the 3%.
Exactly.
Even though, John, even as you say that, your data doesn't support that, because the budget may be bigger, but then you're talking about 120 scandals during the Uhuru regime, 41 scandals during the Kibaki regime. So you'd imagine if we had, unless there's a case of underreporting, it just shows that the appetite, something happened. That there was more theft, and then of course the amounts are astronomical.
It's both and, right? So there was a lot more openness, but let's be honest, we've just been speaking about the way we've been spending on projects that don't have any legs, and what happens with that. Look for instance at our pending bills right now. If you scratched just beneath the surface, you would find that very many of them, both at county level and at national level, are fictitious.
Are fraudulent.
They're fraudulent. And there are people who are waiting to be paid for work that they have not done, right? And especially at this time, it is criminal. But it's true, Anjiro. There's something that shifted with the advent of the Uhuruto government. There's something that completely changed. And you see, like, if you look at the data set, I'm telling,
what are the things that changed?
It did change, but
more avenues.
A lot of this corruption is at the national level as well. Yeah.
Because the amounts that counties are getting compared to the national budget, you're talking about, it's about 17% of the overall budget going to counties.
Yeah.
So yes, maybe more opportunities may add to the numbers, but the quantum has something to do with the nature of the regime. Leadership matters.
I know, but I'm also saying, you see now you're talking about 48 administrations, okay?
48 yes.
Yes, yes.
Well, counties and national.
Yes.
Yes. I was like
48
well,
administrations.
Like which country?
Which
Which
multiverse
country?
is this?
Yes.
Welcome
to the world as
welcome to the conversation. 48 administrations, 48 executives.
Yes.
Rolling and managing budgets. 48 opportunities for different people to actually now come up with scandals. So if you look at a scandal in Mombasa and a scandal in Kuala and a scandal in Kilifi, those are 3 different scandals, completely unrelated from 3 different budget sources.
Yeah.
As opposed to pre-2013, where all of those would have come from one ministry, then just being distributed. So you'll call it one. You'll call it one road scandal in the coast, which will cover Kilifi, Mombasa, Kwale. But now you'll call it 3 different road scandals in Kilifi, Mombasa, Kwale.
Yeah, but 3 that are much, much smaller.
Yes.
Right? Versus look, you have a beautiful edifice to what inflation of budgets can look like right outside the window over here at the Standard Group, the expressway.
Yes.
Right? Compare the cost of the expressway to the cost of a county road,
a 27-kilometer county road
in Machakos or somewhere else. We're talking about completely different leagues of corruption, and this is not to say that the counties should be excused or are excused from the crimes that have taken place. That definitely, I think the thing with the counties is that it's more painful because the resources are much closer to the members of the public. But if you look at the amounts, it's definitely much, much bigger here. But it speaks to, I think, the general problem that we have with misappropriation, both at national and county level.
Yeah, so maybe WikiLeaks could do that,
Whizzy.
disaggregate. WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks could disaggregate national to county.
It's also been captured, by the way, on the scandals in County 49. Because County 49 has some serious scandal. Money came from the national government, went to County 049, and all of it was misappropriated. You haven't seen it?
No.
County
I'm
show.
like,
on show. I'm like, okay. I was like, are you talking about the Showmax? Okay.
Okay. Exists.
Yes.
Need to watch County 49.
Things that actually exist.
True.
Yes, please write it with your pink
Green.
pen.
The pink one.
The pink pen.
The pink
please.
pen.
Yeah.
Okay, this
What
pink.
color is that?
but I mean, in all seriousness, that's where we're going next. We, like I said, this is a work in progress. So what we want to do is to try and deepen the data set, so that if there's someone in Kachaliba who's interested in what's happening in their county, then they'd be able to go and check and see, okay, fine, this project, there was money that was allocated for this project and it's been misappropriated. And that gives people, I think, a bit more agency to go and now tell their governors and tell their MCAs that, look, you're not shepherding our resources properly. That's essentially the goal. We cannot, and if there's anything that I hope that Kenyans will take away from WikiLeaks, it's not that we're trying to target Uhuru over Kibaki, over, you understand? We're just trying to make our governments more accountable, and we can't sit back and complain anymore. We don't have that luxury. If we complain, everything will be taken, and what will we complain about?
We must have the data.
Yeah.
If you want to know what we're talking about, you can go to africancensored.online. You will find WikiLeaks by African Censored. The CEO and founder, John Allan Namu, is in the studio here with us. And of course, if you also want to know what we're talking about, County 49, go to Showmax for as little as 760 bob a month. Watch all the episodes. Episode 4 comes out today, Thursday, the 15th of September.
I'll take you up on that.
You should.
Yes.
Yeah.
All
Back shortly after this break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I know the sun is out in Nairobi at least. As you tembea, be careful. Manchester United are trying to sign anyone. Watch out where your children are. Please hide yourselves.
Sugar and spice.
I reached a point where suicide things were just going south completely. Something stopped me.
Nairobi.
Cloudy conditions at 15 in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 22 today and highs of 23 in a sunny Nakuru at 16. Raining in Nyeri at 13, highs of 21, and we'll see highs of 23 in a sunny Eldoret at 16. Still continues to rain in Mombasa at 24, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 28 in a rainy Malindi at 24. Mostly sunny conditions in Kampala at 20, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 30 in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 24. It is 11 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 24 and lows of 10, and Lagos is mostly cloudy this morning at 25. We'll see highs of 30 in a rainy Kinshasa at 23.
Spice up your life.
The onslaught of traffic on the Thika Superhighway that started early is looking a lot better now. Kiambu Road is still pretty heavy as we're coming towards that Muthaiga Square area. Ring Road Westlands, James Gishoro, all of this looking pretty messy, at least for now. But you can cross over to the Red Hill Link Road without too much of an issue now. Still looking a bit messy on Naivasha Road as you then feed on to Ngong Road. But you should be able to get through it without too much of an issue in the coming minutes. Still looking pretty heavy on Jogo Road, heading out towards Landis, which is heavy. Then touching on that Kamkunji roundabout into the CBDs where you see the most of it this morning. But it's manageable from all that we see. Through traffic hour, let us know what's going on where you are. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. I want to keep things moving this morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Talking about corruption scandals in the country. Eric Latif and Ndu Oko, King Charles, is away for a couple of days. He'll be back, hopefully, after next week. Wanjiru Gekonyo from the Institute for Social Accountability and John Alan Assange, now who is here with us. You call this thing WikiLeaks, so you...
WikiLeaks. Yes.
You could have called it Ufisadi. Then you'd have remained John Alan.
John Alan.
Now, with Whizzy, he'll become Assange. So...
Okay, so I mean, one of the things that you said through all of this is that, look, looking at the different administrations and under that, these numbers that we are now seeing with this report. I mean, obviously, again, not an onslaught on President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, but just saying, look, this is it. You've also mentioned that there's an appetite for corruption amongst the private sector as well. So it's not just public, but it is systemic. Being able to understand, because I often say, okay, so here we are, this big boom of it's an issue. Corruption is an issue.
Yeah.
But then how are we going to get to the point whereby we say, look, it is all right to then call it out, but at the same time, a deeper understanding of what could happen with these funds that are lost to corruption?
That's a great question, Ndu. And I think that's not just for us to do, but I think for everybody who's looking at the issue to start to appreciate. And you know, we've done comparators before. So 140 million shillings stolen could have built like what the outgoing governor of Makueni built, the hospital for the mother and child hospital. I think it cost 140 million shillings. If you go there then or if we take our cameras there, people might appreciate that better. But I think there's something also to be said for not just comparing so that we can see what's been built, but looking at the numbers themselves and trying to ask ourselves then, okay, there might be a deeper problem with our systems, you know, as opposed to just, you know, thinking about how the money could have been spent. I think we need to think about what is the system that allows for these kinds of things to happen. I mean, it's completely valid to say that, yes, these things could have been built in this way. But where we are right now, we have to completely unpick where the problems are, where the leakages are, and fix what our system, you know, fix this system or throw it out. Yeah. That's the point at which we
so
are.
even as you deliberate on that, now looking at this, I mean, clearly, sorry, but 10 is a big number of scandals, but we're looking at in the hundreds.
Yeah.
How then did you analyze to the point whereby you said, okay, so this was a scandal, this was an issue? Was it that, all right, some fella's been found with 150 million shillings in his account and he earns 22 million and he could be part of a racket? Is that what we're talking about? Or then how did you get this information for it them to be deemed a scandal?
Good question. So what we try to do is look at various sources of information that have specific words relating to corruption. So corruption scandal, court cases that in which corruption is being tried. So the anti-corruption court, for instance, was a big source for us. We also looked at published works, books of people who've done research on corruption. There have been non-governmental organizations, international institutions that have various means through which they try and express what corruption is. Then, of course, there are the official sources of, in government, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which has a very clear definition of what amounts to a scandal or amounts to misappropriation, etc. So there are these various ways that we tried to look at that. I don't know if we had one way of saying, okay, so this is what it means, because you have to try and contextualize what everything
so you're looking at
means.
Corruption, not necessarily scandal.
Not necessarily scandal, right?
Okay.
Because a scandal could be a sex scandal. It could be anything else. But we'd have to look at specific phrases put together and backed up by perhaps other data sets to then now amount to various scandals.
Were you also
scandals.
picking
information
relating to action taken on corruption? And were you able to segment? So, for example, I can imagine if you're even using EACC as your source or the Asset Recovery Authority as your source, then you are actually talking about cases that have been taken to court, or the ODPP as a source. Those are cases that are being dealt with, vis-a-vis others that have not been dealt with.
Yeah, so that's the next phase of what we intend to do. That will produce perhaps much less and not satisfying, but much less data than what we have at this point in time, because court cases are slow. A lot of them take years to be sorted out, and that, essentially that's something that we're going to do at a point in the future. Just be able to disaggregate. And I think what we're looking at right now is the entire, data set. The next step for us is to start looking, okay, fine, regime by regime, what were these actual scandals? Can we put that in a way, can we present it in a way that Kenyans can appreciate, okay, so this was a scandal and this wasn't. Then now we go to what action is being taken. Then, we're also looking forward to trying to track some of these scandals. Do you have any information about something that's possibly going wrong? Can you tell us about it for us to begin to investigate the same? So that's, in short, like that, next 1 year to 2 years of what WikiLeaks is going to look like. A deepening of the data set and just a nuancing of it, so that you can tell which from which. So, for instance, if you click on a managed equipment leasing scheme scandal, then there might be a progress pane that shows you, okay, it's been in court for 3 years and the outcome is, etc. Yeah.
I have so many questions running through my mind. I'll just look at the numbers first of all. The worst year was 2014, which saw, in fact, the numbers, 367 billion misappropriated.
Yes.
We then have a spike in 2018. That's also very high, like 240 billion. Could you maybe just explain these two a little bit?
Okay. So 2014 is the end of the first year of the tenure of Uhuruto. A lot of infrastructure contracts then come into the fray, and a lot of them seem to have been overinflated, etc., and begin to be flagged. The same with 2018. Right after the election, there seemed to have been a spike in terms of the kinds of projects related to infrastructure. I'd have to remember which other one. there was, but there was a specific number of infrastructure projects that took place in 2018.
Then that also goes with land.
Yes, and land as well. But that land is more actually for 2014. If you remember, at that point in time, the Kenya Railways were being put to task over the reclamation of land for the building of the standard gauge railway. And there were claims of, especially from the National Lands Commission, of overinflated prices, but also theft of land. And those cases were taken before the National Lands Commission. So that explains two of those spikes. In 2018, I'll get it hopefully by the end of the show, but there's a specific number of scandals that took place in 2018 that if I mention them, you will remember. But let me just search and try and jog my memory a little bit.
But it also tells us something about regime transitions and corruption and the need for us to be vigilant and watch. So the deals are made, and the deals are possibly being made now.
The deals were being made the day before yesterday.
Yes.
Yes. If you are looking keenly.
Yes. Okay, you're obviously alluding to something. I need to be very...
You missed it.
I must have missed it.
So did I.
John was a fly on the wall.
Yes, we need to talk to John Kando. And then also there's the interesting thing about the private sector and these ghost companies. We now 183 suspect ghosts in terms of people, I think, ghost people procuring.
Yes.
And then 89 ghost companies. I mean, this is outrageous. And then 80 agencies. I imagine many of those would be the state-owned enterprises.
Yes.
And state-owned enterprises are a conduit for corruption. A lot of the scandals go through there. And these are areas where the scrutiny is pretty low. So I don't know what your take is in terms of this idea of beneficial ownership. Is it a red herring? It hasn't gotten us anywhere. We've had a lot of talk. We haven't seen its rewards. And then maybe also your reflection on the state-owned enterprises.
I think having laws that give more transparency about ultimate beneficial ownership, I think is a good thing, to the extent that you should be able, there should be traceability of who owns what in this country and how they tender. And I'm saying this for this reason. I'll give you an example from something that I personally was involved in investigating. Former senator, very senior senator, has 7 companies and some inside knowledge about a specific tender in government that he'd like to win, and also the acquiescence of various people from the tender committee. So what does he do? He comes and creates tender documents that allow for one to be perhaps out of range in terms of the financial, because you do
technical.
Yeah, there's the technical, there's the financial as well. So you have one that's too expensive. You have one that technically doesn't have the right partners. You have another one. So it looks like the tender committee is being presented with alternate bids, but the bids are coming from the same people. What that person would do is use employees from his company and front them as owners of the business. Immediately the tender is won, then those CR12s are changed and revert back to
the actual owner.
To the actual owner. So the abuse of things like AGPO, are really, really important in understanding corruption, where young people are supposed to be given opportunities, but the power behind those young people are really now these same old tenderpreneurs. And it speaks to a very in-depth understanding of how procurement works in this country, but also, I think, an understanding of the importance of political connections in not so much even in winning the tender, but just in being able to get the information about what's coming up, what's coming down the pipes, and perhaps even before that to create it. Now, on parastatals, I really don't know what else to say that except that I know of a parastatal currently that is being led by somebody that is irredeemably corrupt, but not just corrupt, but incredibly forceful in ensuring that there's silence and acquiescence in that parastatal. So beyond there being low scrutiny, I think there's also a lot of intimidation that is taking place. I've spoken to people there, and they are so afraid of speaking out and try and cover their tracks, that to the end, the quality of the information that they give you isn't very good, because they know what they want to say. They just can't say it. I think we need to be very watchful of what happens in those state-owned agencies, and I think there has to be a lot more accountability. Perhaps, because all of them are subject to the same procurement laws in this country, but perhaps there has to be some specific oversight on how funds in parastatals are being appropriated. And perhaps that the accounting officers, I don't know whether, not accounting officers, but internal auditors should be able to either sit somewhere else or something. I don't know
Internal
what needs to
auditors
happen.
should be external.
Yeah, there has to be
Remote.
something. Look at the Kenya Pipeline Corporation?
Company.
Yeah. Company. Look at the number of scandals that took place between, say, 2014 and 2019. In the billions. And the way it happens, it happens in various ways. So there'll be someone internally who has contacts within the tender, a committee who has contacts to a contractor. And that contractor then influences them, and then at some point down the road, we are told that the contractor doesn't have money to finish the projects that they are doing, right? And they start asking Exchequer for more money. Or, and which was really interesting, people go through a tender process, win the tender, both on financial and their technical bids are good, but because the person, the organization that they wanted to win doesn't win, what do? They go back, withdraw the tender, change the design of the tender at one stage that gives advantage to another organization and kicks out these other ones. So you look like you've been knocked out technically, but these organizations are within their rights to do so, right? But you know what game is being played. So many times corrupt individuals, especially at parastatal level, but also elsewhere, are very good at coloring within the lines and knowing how to manipulate various stages of tendering, for instance, to be able to advantage the people that they want to advantage. Yeah.
So it looks as though the system is pre-designed. From what we're not even talking about let's wait until the harvest and then we all share. We're looking at, at planting season. It has been designed so that the
plowing season.
At plowing season, it has been designed so that this entire thing then is taken. The heaviness, though, that weighs on the hearts of many as we hear these things, as we see these numbers, even try to calculate them, then is so. What will be done? And I think my buzzword as we are going forward is participatory governance. And to say that how can then we who hear these numbers, who see these things, who compute and tabulate on a daily, how can we then be part of a process which undoes this systemic thing that we are talking about? That's
a tough one, and I don't have all the answers, but I do have a suggestion. I think people are getting a bit tired of hearing about Makueni, but I'll give this example. This third tier of governance that the former governor introduced is really what we should all aspire to. Public participation should not be something that's announced and just passes. You understand?
It's not advertised for a meeting.
Exactly.
And then it ends.
It needs to be something that becomes a lot more. How do I put this?
Institutionalized.
Well, yes, yes, and made such an.
So it's a permanent feature.
A permanent feature, but such an important part of the process that nothing can proceed until public participation takes place, and all. I'd say even more resources need to be dedicated to ensuring that people either follow it online or it's held in a place or at a time when people are able to participate, not to have it in the middle of the week on a Wednesday at 12 p.m. or at 3 p.m. when people are in their offices and you only have a select number of people who are able to attend. But more than that, it's taking it, using things like chiefs barazas to start to discuss these kinds of things, because the in as much as I know that there are problems with what was then the provincial administration, I think in the hands of a government that wants to serve the public, institutions like those can be very important in inculcating the sense of public participation when it comes to these kinds of tenders. And when people see that, what I said is actually being implemented, that gives a person the morale to go and say, okay, tomorrow, this is what I want to happen. So even things like Nyumba Kumi, etc., might have been used badly in the past. If you were to redesign government to make it more people-centered, what are all of these things, or all of these meetings that you're calling people to, or all of these organizations that you're calling people to be a part of, what do they actually do? So it's really refocusing governance on the people and making sure that they're in the driver's seat. The problem with that is that things might happen a lot slower, right? But would you rather something that happens slowly, but you get a good process
the front
in
gear,
end?
you'll never pause at any point, you'll never reverse at any point.
Yeah.
But then that also calls on goodwill, the political goodwill of the leaders that we elect, because it doesn't sound like whatever kind of legislation we have now is not sufficient. We have sufficient legislation that calls for public participation. The County Governments Act and all the other laws are talking about this. The institutionalization of this and making it a permanent feature and a very integral part of development and conversations on development goes back to the leadership. So leadership at county level and leadership in State House. So then it trickles down. If, for example, President William Ruto demonstrates, like he has said now with CBC, he said on CBC, we've got to have public participation. I think this will be a litmus test and a show of what he intends for us to see going forward. If the CBC public participation conversations actually lead up to something that people feel, oh yes, this is what we felt we wanted, and those that feel that what they said was not factored in, but they are given an explanation as to why, sets the tone for everything going forward. Wajiro, make your comment before we close the hour.
We need to move beyond tokenism.
Yes.
And for public participation to be resourced, this is function 14 in the schedule, or the fourth schedule of the Constitution. We need to put those documents, the BQs, the procurement reports, the completion of a project reports, and the final go ahead to be in the hands of citizens. That's what Makueni did. They have a provision for citizen oversight in the procurement process. So we have the models. We need to push, because we have some statements that indicate goodwill, but we need to push. And I think maybe just be a lot more strategic in terms of how we advocate for the institutionalization. So we can't wait for political will. We need to create an environment that pushes for it.
That's very well said. John Allen, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Hope to see you in 10 days' time at the Ngong at the Nairobi Racecourse, because this is what's going to happen there. The African Concours d'Elegance, 50th edition.
Yes.
Wanjiru is already coming.
Okay.
It's
I
only,
know now.
Now she is.
Now I am.
Can I be a Kenyan and ask, uko na tickets?
Yes, of course. We are being invited.
Yes.
Just say, I know Eric.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the gate.
No. Give us the tickets in advance, Eric. Otherwise, this is just PR.
See, I'm sending you to the office where you get the tickets and just say, I know Eric. Just go with the cash in hand. John Allen Namu is the CEO and founder of African Censored. They've done some good work with Whizzy leaks, looking back at the documented incidences of corruption from the Moi regime, 1978 up to 2022, the Uhuru Kenyatta regime. Of course, they'll continue into the Ruto administration going forward and churning out this data for us to use and for us to make good of you. Asante sana for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. One last thing, I just want to say a shout out to Odanga Madung. He knows why, related to Whizzy leaks. And just follow our work and let's keep on supporting each other.
Kabisa. Odanga Madung, good morning and good job. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life
Good morning. This is Newswire. I am Stephanie Wangari. Millers say they are facing a biting cash crunch that threatens to ground their operations over bills owed by the state under the recent maize flour subsidy program, which raises fresh fears of flour shortages. The warning comes a day after President William Ruto criticized the maize flour subsidy program that cost billions of shillings as inefficient and prone to fraud. The Cereal Millers Association say they are working with the government to expedite payment to millers for flour supplied under the subsidy program. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations has dismissed reports on social media that 7 of their senior officers were forced to resign under unclear circumstances. In a statement, DCI acknowledged that the officers were no longer on their payroll, but refuted claims that they had been coerced to exit the service. The investigative body explained that the officers resigned to pursue their careers in the private sectors as financial investigators, fraud experts, and IT specialists, among other jobs. A section of Raila Odinga's ODM party members say they do not want Suna East MP Junet Mohammed for any parliamentary leadership position. The party set to produce a National Assembly majority leader, and a meeting will be held tomorrow in Machakos County to decide on who will be considered. Former Minority Leader John Mbadi, former Minority Whip Junet Mohammed, and Ugunja lawmaker Opio Wandai are among the frontrunners for the slot. Sources, however, say there is opposition to Junet's candidacy. The source said that Suna East MP enjoys Raila's favour, but MPs have linked him to the Azimio leader's failed State House bid. Junet has been under fire on social media that he was part of those who allegedly bungled Raila's campaigns, claims that Azimio refuted through a statement earlier in the week. President William Ruto has sent a message of condolence to the family, governor, and residents of Baringo County following the sudden death of Deputy Governor Charles Kipok. Kipok, a former chairperson of the Kenya Tea Growers Association, is reported to have succumbed to breathing complications while waiting to board a Mombasa-bound Kenya Airways flight at JKIA yesterday evening. In the message of comfort, President Ruto mourned the first-term county leader as an amiable, astute, and highly accomplished public servant and captain of industry with an enviable track record of success in the tea subsector. Now, Siaya Governor James Orengo says former President Uhuru Kenyatta's decision to overlook 6 judges for promotion to the Court of Appeal and Environment Court was unjustifiable. In a statement, Orengo opined that the judges exceeded all requirements needed to take up the new positions after being recommended for promotion by the Judicial Service Commission. The 6, Agri Mchelule, Weldon Korir, Joel Ngugi, George Odunga, and Judith Omange were part of a cohort of 40 judicial officers who were eligible for promotion in June 2021 after being vetted by the JSC. Kenyatta, however, initially said that the 6 were underqualified for the roles before later stating that they had underlying integrity issues based on findings from an alleged intelligence report. However, after swearing in the judges yesterday, President William Ruto vowed that he would lead from the front in upholding the rule of law.
I want to assure you that my administration will respect the independence of the judiciary, will respect the independence of all the other institutions in a manner that makes them efficient to deliver on their respective mandates. We will promote dialogue between institutions and positive engagement.
A federal jury yesterday convicted R. Kelly of several child pornography and sex abuse charges in his hometown of Chicago, delivering another legal blow to a singer who used to be one of the biggest R&B stars in the world. Kelly, 55, was found guilty on 3 accounts of child pornography and 3 counts of child enticement, but the jury acquitted him on a 4th pornography count as well as a conspiracy to obstruct justice charge, accusing him fixing his state child pornography trial in 2008. He was found not guilty on all 3 counts of conspiring to receive child pornography and for 2 further enticement charges. The American singer, who is serving 30 years in jail for sexual offenses, could now face 10 to 90 years in prison. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
104.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Traffic continues on most of these streets this morning, and we're looking at it coming off of Jogger Road. Still a thing as you get to the Landis Road junction and then out towards Kamkunji. That's still heavy. The CBD taking on a lot of traffic this morning, and it's ebbing and flowing on the Thika Superhighway. It's going to continue for some time from what we can see. It's just at Survey, though, that whole outer ring business out of the way. Limuru Road still heavy. We're looking at Uhuru Highway, then out towards the CBD. Still with some traffic this morning. Coming out of Lavington, Kileleshwa, out towards Mzima Springs, and James Gishuru still continues with traffic as well. How about we take a look in about half hour and see what it looks like? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Still want to keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
It's 7 minutes
not
after
down.
9. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, this Thursday, the 15th day of September 2022. For the next 53 or so minutes, we are going to talk about the Kenya Ports Authority, port operations from inland to back to the coast or wherever, and looking at the directive by President William Ruto that port clearance operations revert to Mombasa and they move away from these other places that they have been taken to. Just trying to understand, so why had they gone? What was happening? Does a presidential directive serve as enough to actually revert these operations back to the port? We have a former managing director of the Kenya Ports Authority who is now a member of the National Assembly. Before we introduce him to the show, the day's proverb: the worst things to be in bed and sleep not, to want for one who comes not, or to try to please and please not. The Egyptians just looked at everything else in the world, from the sun rising and rising not to setting, and they thought the three worst things.
Sleep is very important.
You go to bed and you can't find sleep. It means that there's something that is keeping you awake. You're troubled. It means something, or you're unwell. It means something.
We have said there's at least 48.6% of a certain population that may be having this problem.
Sleepless
nights. And sleep is health.
There could be also another 50.42% that could also not sleep, celebrating.
But I think the Egyptians are onto something.
Yes. Wanting for one who comes not. Or
even after 5 times,
yes,
comes not. Yes.
Trying to please.
Yes, that one I don't know now.
And please not. Sycophancy. You're
Yes.
just trying to align yourself, but the person looks at you and they're like, huyu ni nani
Doesn't
sasa?
even recognize you.
Huyu ni nani sasa?
I think Egyptians are very deep. That's a very layered proverb. They've come from sleep.
I think those 3 things that they've put out there cover
Yes.
a multitude of other things.
Right. Maybe they look at the individual multidimensionally.
Yeah, because in the existence of man, looking at things that you cannot control, in the existence of man, the sun has never not come up when it was supposed to, so you're not even going to worry about those things. It didn't rain today. It'll rain eventually, so you're not even worried about that. But the expectation, I think, is rife in those 3 things. The failure and expectation, I think, is...
the disappointment.
The disappointment worries you more than anything else.
Yeah. Dr. Daniel Manduku, the Member of Parliament for Nyeri Masaba constituency, is here with us in the studio. You know, at one time we hosted Richard Onyonka, and he was explaining to us Masaba and Chache. Masaba is facing town. Chache is behind town, is it?
Not really. It's in the center of the left to the right of town.
East and west.
There you
It's
go.
east and west.
East and west.
So which one is east?
Masaba, where I come from. And you pronounce it correctly, Masaba.
It's Masaba. So Masaba is Nyeri East.
Nyeri East.
Did you know that, Wanjiru?
Nope. I'm
You
learning
learn a new thing every day.
Every day.
From
especially-
Egyptians
especially with
to
you.
Abagusi.
Especially on this platform, yes.
Yes.
Chache is west.
Chache is west. That's why we have Kitutu Chache, which means Kitutu West. And Kitutu Masaba.
Masaba is east.
Kitutu East, yes.
Is there Nyeri where Chache?
Yes, there's Nyeri Chache.
There
Ednah
you
is
go. Ednah is from Chache.
And where we have Zahir Janda as our new member of parliament.
Yes. Right. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Thank you.
Congratulations for getting the mandate from the people of Nyeri Masaba.
Thank you.
To represent them in the National Assembly. And even before that, you had served the country as the managing director of the Kenya Ports Authority.
Correct.
And you left under a cloud of things.
Yes.
Have you sorted out your cases? Is there a case against you?
Well, on paper there's a case, but in reality there's no case. It is because I was opposed to the privatization of the port.
There was privatization of the port.
That is the real reason.
There was privatization of the port.
And then, of course, there are political issues that I was speaking to the then deputy president. I was speaking to the current deputy president. Those were the issues, really. Anything else is a story.
You were speaking to them and ought not to have spoken to them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We were under instructions as CEOs not to talk to
certain
the
people.
President, yes. And I kept talking and picking his calls.
Why?
He was my boss.
Okay.
In government, you work with all your bosses.
Okay.
Yes.
Who was privatizing the port? I'm
Tell us
going
about
back
the
to this.
privatization.
Privatization
Have
of the
we
port.
missed something?
You've missed a lot. You've missed a lot. But then I think today's issue is different.
But maybe a background would be helpful.
You're saying that there's a case in court, but it is not about privatization of the port.
You see, managing directors typically in Kenya undergo through a lot. There's a lot of political pressure. There's a lot of regional interests. And when you're seen to be independent-minded, ask yourself why 2 years after I left, 2.5 years after I left, they don't have a managing director at the port. Simple reason. They want to keep a puppet who can do their work and their bidding. At that time, there was an interest to privatize sections of the port, container terminal number 2. And I was not aligned to those interests. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So here's a question that Wanjiru could have asked at some point before, if this was not the conversation for the day today about returning the port operations back to Red Card campaign. Talked about people who have been inked by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, list forwarded to the IEBC, and says, look, there are court cases against this individual. Should they be cleared to run for public office? We know you, of course, you will say you should be cleared to run for public office. But then, realistically speaking, Mheshimiwa, is there a case for saying, Chapter 6, let's not allow you to run until you clear your case?
I think we have to look at it in a broader context. Remember, we voted for our president, the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, when he was in ICC. What happened? He was discharged. Why? Because there were no grounds to continue with the case. Most of us in parliament, in fact, many of us in parliament have similar cases, quote unquote, including the deputy president today. You need to ask yourself what is the foundation and what was the background before you jump into conclusion. But then remember that our constitution also guarantees us our freedom until you've gone through the court process. And even after you go through the court process, you must exhaust all appellant mechanisms. And so we are waiting and we're ready to go through it. But meanwhile, we must serve our people.
Okay.
I don't even know where to start on this one because, of course, the Red Card campaign was crafted on the thinking that you want to avoid.
Let me give you an example.
You want to avoid.
Let me give you an example.
You want to avoid the situation where somebody gains power and is then able to destroy evidence or interfere with their case and disrupt the possible prosecution.
That
It's
is not-
also unjust if a governor who has corruption allegations or is impeached on the basis of corruption allegations, not a charge, cannot then hold office on the thinking that they will interfere, because that's what Justice Mombigoge's ruling said. Then is it not the same? So
I
when
think
we
you need to
see
understand that,
actions that look like somebody interfering and destroying evidence, or people will then run to office to cover themselves if you have a
You need
case
to understand
to answer.
this. First of all, we've got very, very independent institutions in this country, thanks to our constitution. That independence guarantees that there's no room for interference. And even if there was room for interference, I'm in the National Assembly. I cannot walk to the Kenya Ports Authority to get access to everything, to anything. In any case, all evidence, if any, has already been collected and taken by the prosecutors. So there's nothing to destroy. Remember, Chris Obure was on the red alert list. A week later, the court discharged him after 10 years in the corridors of justice. So assume that the IABC had barred him based on that red card alert.
Right, but his counterparts were charged in a British court. So, the issue becomes then...
I think you're mixing up issues. Chris Obure is a very different case.
That was the chicken gate.
Yes.
So let me...
Chris Obure's case is a fantastic case where you can judge someone wrongly and then he's discharged. And luckily, the court freed him just a week after the red alert list had come.
So
by the way, my name was not on the red alert list. Just check.
It's not.
It's not. Just confirm.
So let me retract and say this. We've had then cases where counterparts are prosecuted in other jurisdictions but not here. Our prosecutorial system on issues of corruption are weak. We also have the challenge of the weaponization of corruption. But in between that, there is real corruption.
If you go to the court today, you realize that more than 60% of the cases, corruption cases, are actually convicted. They are convictions in more than 60%. The current regime has been able to move it from a low of 30% to more than 60%
of convictions.
Yeah, and so we have independent institutions. We are ready to go through it, and depending on the judgment, then we abide by the judgment. But there's no room for interference. And you can't tell somebody that he'll sit at home and wait for the day of judgment. You must be doing something else, like serving your people.
I don't agree there is no room for interference, because I think there is room for interference, but then also agree that there has been maybe slight improvement in weaponization. There's a commitment by this administration to increase the resources to the judiciary, but you must recognize...
And fair administration of justice as well.
Fair administration of justice.
Which is that the person has...
You see, if you look at these cases in the last regime, they were selective. You know that.
That's a problem.
They were selective.
That's a problem.
That's what we are told.
If you are thought that you are not towing the line of some political persuasion,
you're picked out.
You're picked out. And that is what happened. Why is it that no one was charged out of the KEMSA staff? The Roraka land issue. How come no one has been charged? And those are things that are there. But Daniel Manduku, because he speaks to somebody, is charged. That is what happened.
Okay. Let's move into the issue that we brought you in here today for, which we invited you here for, which is the issue of moving port operations back to Mombasa. The genesis of this, what is it? And what exactly did it mean by moving port operations out of Mombasa?
Let me start by saying, I think, a little background information. And I'll try and recollect as much as possible from my memory, because it's been a while. Around the year 2015, Kenya's port was very inefficient in terms of what we call cargo dwell time. On average, goods will stay in the port for 14, 19 days. Best practice in the world dictates that we should not have goods on the port for more than 5 days. And so the government looked at the issues and realized that one of the issues was what we would call capacity, port capacity. At that time, the Port of Mombasa had a capacity to hold 800,000 TEUs. TEUs means 20-foot equivalent units. And so the Japanese came in and funded the construction and expansion and built the second terminal, second container terminal, whose capacity would be 1 million TEUs. And that would make the port increase to 1.8 million TEUs. In the year 2017, the port had a throughput of more than 1 million TEUs, which means that it was exceeding the capacity. Now, to deal with the issue of capacity, the port subcontracted private storage facilities or warehousing called CFSs or container freight stations. And the idea was that when cargo arrived at the port, it would be evacuated and taken to the CFSs. And once it is there, the custom clearance and other procedures would be undertaken from there. Then it would be hauled by road to the inland. Now, the CFSs became a problem. Why? Because the more the cargo stays, the more you pay. It was a direct proportional situation. And so,
so basically, you've moved them from the port itself.
Yes.
You've taken them to the CFS.
Storage, a private storage warehouse.
It's a private storage warehouse.
Yes.
But the processing is still taking long.
Yes. Why? Because the guy is paid per day.
Okay.
So if the container stays for 10 days, the better. So there's no hurry to clear it within 5 days. What happened? There was collision because between port employees, the owners of the CFSs, and customs. And so when I got to the port, the dwell time was 14 days. And we've got what we call the free period. Free period is the days within which you must collect your cargo without paying any storage. And that was 5 days, which means every container on average had 9 extra days of storage. Now, this storage money is paid to the private people. In fact, in port language, if you have revenue out of storage, you are deemed to be inefficient. When we do our quarterly annual returns, and the board will realize that our storage fees has gone up.
It's making you more money.
It means that you are inefficient. And so what do we do? Besides having to expand the port and ensuring that no cargo leaves the port, the standard gauge relay was put up. And then, coming with that was an additional inland container depot at Nairobi, which had an additional 550,000 TEUs, which means, theoretically, Mombasa plus Nairobi was in excess of 2.4 million TEUs, which is adequate for the next 10 years. Because our current throughput in Kenya is 1.4. When I left the port, it was 1.425 TEUs that year. So, we started hauling cargo from Mombasa to ICD. And that meant that the CFSs had to close down because then there was no business.
They're not getting the business.
And we got so efficient that when I was leaving the port, the dwell time was 3.5 days.
So when it leaves the port, it leaves the ship, gets onto the train, comes to Nairobi, it's cleared within 3 days.
Yes. What happened when I went to the port? There was some inefficiency. We've got what we call the STS. STS is a ship-to-shore gantry crane, which evacuates from the vessel. It would do that and put on what we call a terminal tractor. The terminal tractor would go and stack it in the yard. Another terminal tractor would come and load it again using what we call a top loader, take it to the SGR yard, stack it again. Another one would come again and, there were 5-6 handling issues. So I reduced that. I came up with what we call the X-hook haulage, where I ensured that cargo left the vessel onto a terminal tractor and directly to the train. How did we achieve that? We employed what we called a berthing window. Berthing window means you tell a vessel, you come on Monday at 8. And you're on that berth from Monday 8 to Thursday 9 p.m. With that, you're able to plan. You're able to allocate resources in terms of terminal tractors, in terms of top loaders. You can plan. And using that method,
and even the wagons,
we were able to be very efficient, such that by the time the vessel is leaving Mombasa, the containers are all in Nairobi at ICD. Naturally, Mombasa started losing business because most of the money that was being earned in Mombasa was coming out of storage. And I'll give you an example. In the year 2018, I remember the port paid more than 2 billion shillings to storage facilities in Mombasa. At that time, we had 21 CFSs. 6 were for vehicles and 15 were for containers. So you can imagine 15 CFSs sharing 2 billion shillings. Now, ask yourself, what value do you add in storage? It's zero.
None.
It is just inefficiency.
Yeah.
And so, we started persuading the big importers to use the standard gauge railway for their importation, and they agreed. In fact, to date, if I remember, most of the large importers, the Isuzus, the East African breweries, big industries, actually use the railway. But the railway had a challenge, and the biggest challenge with the railway was what we call the last mile connectivity. You'd bring your cargo from Mombasa to Nairobi at $500, and then spend another $300 from ICD to industrial area, which didn't make sense. Kenya Railways lacked what we call a door-to-door, a port-to-door package.
Yeah.
It was not able to negotiate with the last mile connectivity, and that is where the issue started. The transporters were not willing to come and do the last mile, and if they did, it was at a very high cost. And so it made rail more expensive than trucking. Now, I think we need to understand about trucking also. If you look at our transport corridor, we call it the Northern Corridor. The Northern Corridor is about 12,000 kilometers from Mombasa to Kinshasa. But the component in Kenya is about 1,320 kilometers. Now, if you drive along the Northern Corridor and you take east or right and left 5 kilometers, you realize that 80% of Kenya's wealth is along that corridor, which meant that activities at the port of Mombasa and the subsequent haulage of cargo and other transportation along the corridor actually had a positive economic impact. And that is why all the towns and cities are along that corridor. In fact, that is what informed the thought of having a second corridor, the Lapset corridor.
Yes.
Lamu, Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia corridor. And the vision then was to have that corridor go all the way to Central Africa and then to Douala in Cameroon, so that you have another Northern Corridor. There's another corridor that we tried to establish between from Taita Taveta to a place called Sigida, northern Tanzania, up to a place called Isaka. Then from Isaka you go to Uganda. Isaka is also a dry port. Now the issue in Mombasa became then, because of the movement of activities to Nairobi, and the primary activities are basically custom clearance. You know, ordinarily you would go to Mombasa to pick your container.
Yeah.
Stay in a hotel for 3 days. Because of inefficiency, you end up staying for a week.
Yeah.
Because you're waiting for your container from here and there. And then that way you're spending money, and there was money, you know. That is what made Mombasa grow. Now, with the efficiency that was brought in cargo haulage, and timelines reduced from 14 to 3.5 days, obviously, it had a negative impact on the business. At that time, we knew that this was going to happen because there was a study that the former governor commissioned, a study by the University of Nairobi. It actually foresaw the situation we're in today. But it gave alternatives. And I remember it gave 3 alternatives. The first alternative was that we must now start developing a special economic zone in Dogokundu, which is across the channel next to the Navy, if you know Mombasa very well. That was 3,000 acres that was supposed to be developed so that Mombasa has an alternative income-generating activities. The second was to develop small ports. We have about 15 other small ports, but people don't know about them. We have Kilifi, there's a port in Kilifi, there's a port in Malindi, there's an old port in Mombasa, and other small ports. Can't remember many of them. The idea was to Shimoni and all that, you know, Vanga. The idea was to develop these small ports to ease pressure from the port of Mombasa and make these ports also accept small vessels, especially in what we call transshipment cargo from Pemba, Zanzibar, Dar es Salaam. You don't have to come to Port of Mombasa. And then give these small ports to the counties. And that is best practice. Let Kwale have Shimoni. Let Kilifi have Malindi and Vanga. So that there's also activities in those small ports. That was the second thought of making, and then
of retaining
business in Mombasa. This never happened.
Number 3 was?
Why didn't it? I'll come to number 3. Why didn't it happen? When we went to develop the special economic zone in Dogokundu, we realized that there were squatters. We actually obtained financing from the Japanese government. I went to the TCAD conference in 2019 in Yokohama, and we got funding to do 2 baths, electricity, and a road network in the special economic zone. But then the condition of compensation came up that the people had to be resettled. And so the Port Authority came up with what we call a RAP, a Resettlement Action Plan, which was being implemented. And by the time I left, I think it was on good course to be implemented. And that would have been done earlier. Had that been done earlier, probably industry would have spurred in that area, and maybe other activities would have made Mombasa more vibrant. But now we find ourselves in this situation that we are in. I think the directive is something doable. It's a good directive. As long as we don't make the port inefficient again to create business, quote unquote. Because then we will not be competitive. If you look at ports in Africa, like Durban, for example, the dwell time is consistently 3-4 days. 3-4 days. Mombasa today, I'm told, is 6. It has gone up from 3.5 to 6, which is still allowable, because then it is 1 day extra above the free period, which is 5 days. And for transit countries, the free period is 9 days. We are still within that 9 days, which means we are fairly efficient, actually, as a port. Why? Because we're able to haul cargo out.
Because we are not all cargo sits in Mombasa.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the sitting of cargo in Mombasa creates business, creates opportunities, inefficiencies, people make money, and that's what people are crying about, really. That is the truth of the matter. I still think that the best model will be a 50-50 arrangement, because the reality of the matter is that we have what we call the take-or-pay agreement, which was signed between the government and the Chinese to ensure that cargo is hauled so that the loan can be repaid. So I think we have to have a place where Kenya Railways has to become efficient enough to be competitive with the truckers, so that you have an option as an importer. Do I take the truck or do I take the railway?
A competitive option.
Yes.
Exactly.
The problem is that we forced people to use the railway.
And they will both be just as efficient.
And you didn't, and then Kenya Railways did not work on its efficiencies.
Yes.
Why didn't Kenya Railways do that? I mean, if you're talking about, if by the time a vessel is departing Mombasa, all the cargo is in Nairobi and in Naivasha, why is it taking longer, and why is it more expensive to move from here, Syokimau, to industrial area?
I think the biggest challenge has been bureaucracy. And not having a business mindset. Had that been given to a private operator, I'm sure it would have been very efficient. But then you see government sometimes has those bureaucracies, which I hope will now be eliminated, so that we just look at it from a business case scenario.
Dr. Manduku, can I put it to you? Thank you for this. It's very illuminating and great to hear. But part of the problem with the SGR is that it was overinflated. It was the wrong option. In fact, there had been talk about rehabilitation of the line. And the argument was made that Kenya did not have the cargo to pay back that loan at the original rate, let alone now when it was overinflated. So the problem we have is linked to what we were discussing before about corruption and who pays. Because we then went and borrowed from the China Exim Bank. We've committed ourselves to pay based on a certain haulage that we do not have. So that, I think, is the first problem from where I see it. The inefficiencies in SGR are structural. It's a white elephant. That's why government was forcing issues. So what, in your view, can we do? Because we now have the SGR. We now have actually the rehabilitation of the old line that has opened it up and is linking it, ironically. In practical terms, what do we do? The second thing, of course, is what you said came out in that University of Nairobi report, even though the report, I think, was done by the county after the business had already moved. So by that time, the impact was there. Hauliers had lost their business, coast economy. Apparently, coast is the third largest contributor to the GDP, and lost a sizable chunk of that with the loss of this business. So the extent to which there was no socio-economic impact done when this decision was made, how do you redress that? Because development should not kick people out of employment. You can't kick people out of employment, then say after 3-4 years, start another business.
Dr. Respond to those questions after the break. I want us to take a break. It's 25 minutes to 10. Dr. Daniel Manduku is a member of Parliament for Nyeri Masaba. He is a former managing director of the Kenya Ports Authority. He is telling us, giving us the background of the decisions that were made to move port operations to inland, and also telling us, okay, so what needs to happen from where he sits. We are discussing about this directive by the president, return port operations to Mombasa. What's the impact of that? How does that help the coast? How does that help the country's competitiveness, especially the port of Mombasa? 24 minutes to 10. Showmax has a show called
County 49.
And
it's the fictional county of Bwatele, and it's in the breadbasket of Kenya, and they have issues concerning governance, corruption, the rule of law, this, that, the other thing. Decided to kick their governor out, kidnap their deputy governor, and said, look, you will dance to our tune, otherwise you will be our guest for some time. The 4th episode airs today. 760 shillings. Showmax allows you to have access to this and other great programming, and you can compare county. Take a number, 1 to 47 with 49.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We know it is cold, but Cold Stone Creamery has hot deals for you. This month, enjoy cups of rich and creamy ice cream, delicious ice cream cakes, and fresh oven-baked cakes at amazing prices. Visit any of our stores in Nairobi or Mombasa and indulge in your favorite treats. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
Introducing Bwatele, County 49, a rich county where the leadership has failed its people. Justice and peace are elusive while violence sweeps through the county. What will be done to save the people of Bwatele County? Watch County 49 as our heroes and villains clash in an exciting tale of corruption, greed, love, and redemption. Every week on showmax.com.
Japan is a multicultural hub that has perfected the balance between cutting-edge technology and world-class infrastructure. Against the backdrop of stunning natural monuments and history, you have the opportunity to experience all this while studying for your master's or PhD in some of the world's best institutions, offering leading programs in information technology, biomedical science, the social sciences, among others. To learn more about how you too can study in Japan, join me, Eric Latif, and my co-hosts Nduoko and CT Muga in the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every Wednesday morning this whole month. See you then.
If I look at the Premier League table, Manchester City is on top. Arsenal, number 2 in the table. Absolutely. How did Brentford get to number 3 in the Premier League table? They beat us like Burkenge.
Sugar and spice. What's your love language, French?
My love language is I want to be left alone.
What can't you compromise on?
Quality time and acts of service. Words of affirmation tutapata hata kanisani.
We do this
11 to 3 p.m. Monday to Friday.
All right, let's look at 16 degrees, but cloudy conditions in Nairobi continue. You'll see highs of 22. 24 will be the high in a sunny Nakuru, and it's 15 and raining in Nyeri. Highs of 21. 23 will be the high in Eldoret, where it is sunny at 17. The rain continues in Mombasa at 26. It's also raining at 26 in Malindi. It's 21 and cloudy in Kisumu, going to highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 27 in Kakamega. 21 and sunny in Kampala, 27 and sunny in Dar es Salaam. Looking into Johannesburg, it's sunny at 13. We'll see highs of 24, and 29 will be the high in a rainy Lagos. Mostly cloudy conditions at 23 in Kinshasa, and it's sunny at 30. Out in Beijing, going into evening Thursday. 14 degrees and cloudy in Paris, highs of 22 and highs of 19 in London. It's 22 and partly cloudy still Wednesday night in New York, coming into Thursday, highs of 24.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice
You will have a problem
FM.
coming off Mombasa Road onto Huru Highway, however, getting into the CBD is where the last of traffic, I think, is playing out now. Coming out of Western's looking a little bit better, but on the thicker superhighway, touching on Kiambu Road, also still some traffic there. Limu Road looks pretty heavy coming into the CBD as well. You should be out of traffic hours soon, just in case there's a little bit here and there. Talk to us through the morning on SpiceFM, KE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
20 minutes to 10. Dr. Daniel Manduku is still here with us in the studio, former Managing Director, Kenya Ports Authority, new Member of Parliament for Nyeri Masaba. Wanjiru, ask the question again.
Abridged version. How would you like to see this? How should this directive be framed to deal with, number one, the governance issues? Because it's one thing to return operations to Mombasa, but we are saying there were inefficiencies. How should that be dealt with? And then the second thing is the SGR. We still have a contract and we're still, this take or pay. How do we deal with that, given that SGR is inherently inefficient?
I think from where I sit, first I think the government can renegotiate and reschedule the payments for SGR. We have to face the reality that under the prevailing circumstances, we cannot raise enough revenue to pay back that. Secondly, attract private sector investment into the SGR. Get a group of investors to purchase rolling stock on the SGR. From where I sit again, and having sat in the board of the Kenya Railways Corporation, government cannot do business. We should look for private sector players to bring their own stock, rolling stock on the SGR, so that they can do the haulage. The yearly repayments for the maintenance and operation of the SGR is very high. I will not give you the figure. It's very high. It's astronomical. Give it to private sector. That way then, railway starts becoming competitive. If Kenya Railways still want to be players in the haulage of cargo, then they must be competitive. They must sort out the issue of last mile. You remember when we were growing up, there were railway sidings to industrial area. That dealt with the last mile connection. And that is what is critical. Railway should give a package from port to door. In the absence of that, it can never be efficient. And so I think the reality of the matter is, when we were doing a train, one train, for example, I'll just give you the numbers. One train would carry 110 TEUs, 20-foot equivalent. And that is anywhere between 100 and 80 trucks. And by the time I was leaving the port, I was doing 12 trains a day. So which means you're putting off 1,000 plus trucks off the road. And each truck employs minimum 5, 6, 8 people. And then, remember I told you about the corridor development? It is the activities that take place along the corridor that spur economic activity. We cannot ignore that. And that is why if you drive down to Salama, Emali, Mtitwande, those towns are virtually dead. It's not just Mombasa, it is the corridor that we're dealing with. And so let us have an option where if I'm competitive enough, I can compete with SGR. And you'll see private sector becoming more competitive and more efficient. And now that the port has expanded, there's room for parking for the trucks, the maneuvering in the port, so that the Kenya Railways competes favorably.
So we are not necessarily talking about CFSs. Moving the cargo from the port to some private storage facility. It is basically looking at the efficiency of clearing the cargo from within the port out onto the road.
Correct.
Okay.
We put some measures in place. I remember one of the things I did when I went to the port, you won't believe it, there were 27 government agencies in the port. KEFIS, Kenya Plant Health, Kenya Bureau of Standards, Nurses and Needles Council, Kenya Forest Service, Kenya Wildlife Service, Kenya Veterinary Service. So we sat down and said, no, look, wait a minute. What are all these guys doing in the port? And I was able to convince the head of state that we just needed 4 agencies. The Kenya Railways for haulage, the Kenya Ports as the landlord, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, and the Kenya Revenue Authority. And then we said, if you have anything to do with standards, with quality, you must work with the Kenya Bureau of Standards. And we introduced what we call the PVOC, the pre-shipment verification, so that if there's anything to do with standards and verification, it is done at the port of loading, not in Nairobi. Because what used to happen, cargo would arrive in Mombasa, then they start opening the containers and checking the quality. Then there's another guy called Anti-Counterfeit Authority comes and says, oh, these are counterfeit. You know, those things. We said, no, do it at the port of loading. That made it more efficient. And that's why we were able to reduce the dwell time to 3.5 days. Before I left, I was pushing for what we call pre-shipment clearance. For example, you're buying your car. We know this car is a 2015 model or 2018 model. Why can't you be allowed to pay the duty the moment the bill of lading is done? So that by the time the car arrives in the port, you just come and drive it off. Why must the car arrive in the port? It is stored in a CFS. The KRA come and do physical verification, then you pay your duty. I was also pushing for what we call the green channel. There's some importers who've done this forever, like the East African breweries. They import the same thing every year for the last 10 years. They are not likely to play games. So why are you telling them that their cargo must be stored at the port? They should be able to pick their cargo from the ship to their storage facility. And then if there's anything to do, you go to the storage facility. Those were the measures that we're implementing. And that is what made the port efficient. But in that efficiency, people lost money also.
So I think the thing is now, I mean, so many things jumping out here. Is it then possible, from what you're saying, then to do almost a shared split of this, so that these things that you're talking about, making sure that there's maximum efficiency at the port, and then also using the rail, however, also making sure that we don't have a whole line of dead business along the corridor?
You're right. But as it is today, if many importers were given options, they'll go by the road. Because the road, you see, another big challenge we have with the railway is the return of empty containers. You see, the truck will come to your warehouse, you remove your goods, it goes back with the empty container.
And the cost is...
Yes, but with the railway, it was a bit complicated. The empty container must be hauled back to the port. An additional cost.
So you pay again.
Eventually, it was actually double. The real cost was actually double. And that is what importers didn't like. There's something we didn't finish about making Mombasa business vibrant. The third thing was the issue to do with the blue economy. You remember we had a big conference on blue economy in, I think it was November 2018. International Conference on Blue Economy. We know and we believe there's a lot of potential in harnessing the benefits of the blue economy. And blue economy is not just fishing. There's more than that. I think that is what we need to work on. A special economic zone, developing of the small ports, and the blue economy initiatives. That will make Mombasa vibrant, on top of having these traditional port activities like clearance and transportation.
So it sounds, Dr. Manduku, like you're saying, even with this directive, because this is let me ask it, in fact, in a question form, what are the likely impediments? Because, of course, it's a presidential directive. An incoming president can overrule an existing directive. There are businesses that have now made investments based on that directive. What are the likely challenges to that?
The only challenge I see is imminent collapse of the Kenya Railways. If they're not able to be competitive, no one will opt for the railway. Or if they opt, there'll be very few people opting for the railway. Because it's about cost versus efficiency.
So when you talk about Kenya Railways now, we've got also to talk about Kenya Railways under the new framework within which it's being managed. There's ICDC, which is railway, port, pipeline, all working together in harmony. Isn't that a conversation that should be happening at that level? Because we are seeing an efficient port, we are seeing an efficient pipeline. How do we work on the efficiency of the railway?
I strongly believe that having that management level introduced was actually creating more inefficiency and bureaucracy.
Why?
These entities have got respective acts of parliament. Then how do you bring something else by an executive order? How will it work? Okay, I was not there when it was directed, but I know that it's not working. Because then who reports to who? Is the MD at the port senior to the MD at the Kenya Railways?
They're reporting to the chairman of ICDC.
Because then the chairman is not executive. It's a bit complicated. Then how does the pipeline come in again? Every state corporation has a respective act of parliament. Let us stick to that. In fact, moving the port to Treasury was a mistake.
Yeah.
Big mistake. And I think it was to serve certain interests.
Very unusual action.
Where in the world is it put under Treasury? Also, we need to look at best practice in the world. Go to any place in the world. The port is the node in the transport corridor. Why do you take it from transport and take it to Treasury? What is the rationale behind it?
So it sounds like this directive needs to be backed by a small policy brief that will address some of these issues.
Correct.
It's not enough just to revert the functions, but also to consider what happens to that management structure.
Yep.
You know, it's undoing quite a lot more.
It was
very
easy.
The contract that we have, the take or pay contract.
This is
what
thing
happens?
that I think His Excellency the President should have done is just revoke that directive that you must use railway.
That's it.
Then people have options.
Just
then
remove
from there,
the must.
Yes. Then from there now,
and things will
work
settle.
out.
And then now deal with the efficiencies and the accountability structures.
Correct.
Explain something or clarify something, Dr. Harry. You've talked about let the private sector play the role on the railway route. How so? Is it leasing the railway to the private sector, to a private operator?
Well, again, you
what?
look at best practice around the world. Most efficient railway systems, the investment of this on the rolling stock is by private sector. For management, day to day. You know, for example, if you have a truck today and it gets a spare part problem, you just walk to Nyamakima and buy a spare part and fix it, and in the next 1 hour it's back on the road. In government, it's not like that. You must advertise, tender. You're taken to the board for public procurement review board. So what would have taken private sector person a day takes government a month. And that inefficiency is obviously passed on to the consumer. And that's where we say some of these things must be done by private sector for efficiency. And it works. I mean, you don't have to go far. Go to South Africa, Durban. We've got Transnet managing the rail operation in South Africa. You go to the Western world, it's the best practice. The government just does the railway, you pay a tariff, and you're given windows to operate your rolling stock. And you do your thing.
But Kenya Ports Authority works well, and yet in other countries, in Dubai World, a private entity is running the port.
You see, there's something else that we were working on. We're working on a model we call the landlord port model. And that should not be confused with privatization. Landlord port model is where you subcontract some services. And I'll give you an example, though it's not a very good example. We employ dockers at the age of 25, 20, 21, 25. A docker is somebody who does the physical work. By the time he's 40, he cannot do the same work. And you must keep him until he's 60 in the port. What happens? Then you have got people who are there, whom you must keep in those positions because they cannot rise. There's no room for horizontal growth or even vertical growth. He can only do dock worker. So he's 60, then he retires. But between the age of 40 and 60, he was not as efficient as between the age of 25 and 40.
Yep.
So the best practice again in the world is those services are contracted to a private enterprise so that you get efficient people to do some of that work. But because of our inherent social system, you have to keep those people for long.
And that's where the politics also comes in.
You can't ignore that. But then I believe there's a way you can have a win-win situation where everyone gains and the other one also gains. Yes. And one way, by the way, and I was coming up with it also, where we were saying, okay, you've worked as a docker for so long. Let us have a program, more like recognition of prior learning and translate you now from a docker to a clerk. Then grow. Grow out of this docker.
Yeah.
And then someone else comes in, and then you grow horizontally. Or even vertically is possible. But our system didn't allow that. You're just stuck there. You're 55.
You're a docker.
But you cannot do the work of a 25-year-old.
You are in Parliament on an ODM ticket.
Yes.
But your tribulations, like you've told us, are partly because you were picking calls from the current president. Have you made a call to your friend, Mr. President?
He was the first
or
to
has he
congratulate
reached
me.
out to you and
He
tell
was
you?
the first to congratulate me the day I won.
All
I
right.
thank him for that. He keeps his friends. But now I'm in the opposition. So we'll be checking his government.
Has he asked for your opinion on this, even during the campaigns and all, and saying, or have you reached out to him?
No, I know he has got. I know he has got people who are good at this, and I know he knows what he's up to. He understands a lot about the port and about the transport system. That I can assure you.
Yeah,
he's very smart.
Right, very smart, but it seems also the. I'm looking for the language because we were told cartels are passé, a lazy option, but the cartels around this are also very smart, and Parliament has not been effective in checking the executive in the last 10 years, including the problem we're talking about here, the SGR. I think when you're talking about these CFSs, even the ownership and those inefficiencies, that's the role of Parliament, to ensure that government policy supports socio-economic interests of the local community, first of all. So there should have been that, 8,000 jobs were affected by this decision. On Parliament's watch, then we've gotten into a contract that we now need to deal with. So there is still a lot of room for personal interests, private interests to come in and mess this situation up. What are you going to do as a member of Parliament, especially given that you understand the terrain very well?
I think, first, let me say this, and it's quite sad that, if you remember, there was a lot of agitation from the coast politicians when it became imminent that the operations were going to be moved to Nairobi and eventually to Naivasha. But then came the handshake. And subsequently, we know that those who were agitating very much also became beneficiaries of this system. The only member of Parliament who kept talking about this was one Mohammed Ali, Jichopevu, Honorable Ali of Nyeri. So political pressure went down because along the way, those who were agitating stopped agitating for whatever reason. And so when political pressure went down, then everyone became for himself,
It was left to the civil society.
I was not in that parliament. I'm now in this parliament. So just watch this space, what we're going to do.
Watch this space.
We will be watching this space.
We'll watch this space.
Dr. Daniel Manduku, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for shedding light on this. As a member of Parliament, we'll be inviting you regularly to talk about this. I expect that you'll be among those who will be sitting in the Transport Committee, if not any other committees as well.
Well, I'm very versatile. I can sit on any committee.
As an architect,
I understand many things.
And a former boss of the National Construction Authority. Also, when we see buildings collapsing, we'll be coming to you in Parliament, asking you, what is this that we are seeing?
We'll be watching.
Yes. Dr. Daniel Manduku is a member of Parliament for Nyeri Masaba constituency, former managing director of the Kenya Ports Authority. What were you at NCA? Was it still MD or Director General?
Executive Director and Registrar of Contractors.
All those things that he has said. We hope to see you on the 25th of September at the racecourse, because this is where the African Concours d'Elegance will be taking place. Doctor, you've heard about that. Of course, you've been to the Concours before. And
I love classic cars.
There you go. So we're going 25th, Sunday, 10 days from today. Wanjiru has already said, yes, I'm giving her the ticket. She's a chipstick like that. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation today.
Thank you.
See you again tomorrow morning. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
Thank you. That was good.